Chair's statement, this meeting is being recorded by the planning board. If any other persons present are recording the meeting, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Okay. In accordance with NGL T30A SS 20G, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. So unfortunately that we had to put that in our agenda.
Where's that constable?
And who is the constable?
It's not a police officer. I asked the
Yes.
police officer and they said it's not them.
I'm aware it's an official position.
Yeah.
But who's the constable? Okay, to be found out. Okay, yeah.
The chair can designate one. How about that? Would you like to be? Yeah, that's
Well,
very interesting on the.
I mean, it's a title. It's an official title. And I work with constables at my
You do?
job.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not familiar with the Greenfield. Yeah.
I've never heard of it. Is it an elected position or appointed?
It's elected
Really?
in my town where I work, but I'm not sure in Greenfield. Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
More
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, it might be someday.
We got two. Joseph LaChance and David Gihan.
Okay, so yeah.
They need to start showing.
Well, I mean, maybe we could talk to them about what to do.
Yeah, at least, oh, you're right.
And if we anticipate needing them, we could,
Yeah, we
Have,
sometimes consider coming.
yeah.
Okay,
If they have a role, they might as well.
yeah, they probably would love to put on their uniform.
I don't know if they would let that. I don't know about
Alright.
that.
Roll call of members. No one's online, so we can just go around the room.
George Salumsis, Vice Chair.
Sarah Brown Anson, member.
Big Michelle, a member.
Jeff Sauer, chair. Next item, approval of meeting minutes. I'll have those sent us.
Move to approve the minutes. Very good, again.
Is there a second? Or
What?
comment?
Yeah, I'll second. And then a comment.
Sure.
Just one thing is, in the approval of minutes from last month, the motion, it mentions that I abstained, but the vote doesn't reflect that. The vote says 4-0. The vote should be 3-0-1.
And then
The abstention.
George, did you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay, I had a couple of things. So my last name is Brown Anson. That's just, I was absent from this meeting. So not to be confused with another Sarah Brown who is involved in town politics.
And he's also absent at that.
Yes. So it's Brown Anson is the last name. So that's just one correction. And then I wasn't here. I just had a question on the agenda for the 18th. I believe there was an agenda item about discussing scheduling that and meeting, but it wasn't reflected in the minutes. It didn't, I'm not sure if it didn't come up in the meeting or if it just wasn't reflected.
We were gonna wait till night.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Then maybe because you weren't there.
thanks.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, updates from the mayor's office. Nothing reasonably anticipated there. The next item, introduction to planning department spring 2026 intern.
To Mr. David Simpson, who reached out to me as the planning director, inquiring about a spring internship as a student at Worcester State University. And so we pursued the rightful sequence of actions with HR and now have onboarded David, who is primarily focusing on taking minutes for both the planning board and the ZBA and drafted the minutes you all just approved.
Well,
Nice.
Yes, did a great job and obviously I'm involved in reviewing and he'll be helping with other tasks, both research and administrative tasks as needed for a few hours each week until early May. But I thought maybe David could say just a few words about his interests in planning.
Yeah, I kind of was say I'm an urban studies student and I've always been interested in like city planning and like development and stuff like that. And I thought this would be a really fun internship to do because I know I wanted to at least try something in a city planning department. So that's what I hope I can do when I graduate.
Yes.
Where do you live?
Orange.
And is this a graduate program, undergrad?
Undergrad, I graduated.
Any specializations or interests,
Um,
like specific topics? Or?
I don't know, I'm just interested in like planning and development in general. I wouldn't say any specific. That's what we got. I'm trying to get some experience here that I haven't gotten in my classes.
Sure. And how much time do we get
On average, 5 hours,
per week?
which, yeah, if you include attending the meetings and then drafting the minutes and revising the minutes based on my review, it's about covers it. But there's the fourth week of the month where there's no evening meeting.
Okay.
So if you all have ideas, but there are there's plenty of work, you don't be idle.
Okay. No problem.
I also wonder, Mr. Chair, if David could join us at the table.
Or say that, yeah. Be more comfortable typing that way.
Welcome, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Excuse me.
On that. All right, do we do the Conway School first because they're here? And then we can get to our in-our labs like we like.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we'll skip ahead to discussion items and a presentation by Conway School students and discussion of draft Greenfield bike plan.
Hi, nice to see you.
Yeah.
We have a short presentation, but feel free to, stop us at any time and ask questions. We'll just give you an overview of our approach right now. We are in the middle of our semester.
Jeff, let me ask you, do we want them sitting so the mic will pick them up for the
Yeah.
recording?
We can absolutely do that. There's this. Oh. there it
The Zoom.
There's a Shelby Brock NNE.
That's the editor of the Greenfield Recorder. Right, I assume like maybe Anthony's not. Thanks.
Okay.
Just because we forgot to ask if anyone wanted to speak. So we can try that later if someone shows up. So hello, everyone. My name is Bennett Zimmerman. These are my classmates, Brian and Grace, and we are students at the Conway School of Landscape Design. And we are working with the city of Greenfield on a comprehensive bike plan as our winter term project. So just a quick overview of our goals is we're looking to create a citywide comprehensive bike plan with suggested bike routes and easy wayfinding and connectivity throughout the city. And maybe looking at some infrastructure and safety enhancements. We're looking to encourage the next generation of cyclists and incorporate both recreational and non-recreational aspects into this project. So we really want to look at connectivity of the bike routes, the feasibility of the implementation plan, and really looking at community-informed solutions. Some questions that we are looking to answer throughout this process are: where do we site bike routes for safety, connectivity, and comfortability? How do we connect primary destinations? And how do we create bike safe routes without significantly impacting vehicle operations? We do have a process. I'm going to quickly go over this, where we analyze bike routes for safety and comfortability under these current conditions. So we take potential bike routes, we put them through a physical conditions model and a social input overlay, which gives us outputs of safety and comfortability, areas of improvement, and community impact. And through a feasibility review, informed routes and priority projects are
at the end of it. And this little caveat of concept elements, although it is cool, we're not looking into that fully. We are looking to end at the informed routes and priority projects.
Yeah, so, through this, we've documented what we're calling existing conditions of bike infrastructure around town. So the green lines are where we are seeing bike infrastructure, and what that means in this town is just painted bike lanes. And so you can see there's fairly limited existing infrastructure, and then the pink purple lines, those are the bike trails. So those are a little more formal, paved, separated bike trails. But overall, you can see it's very piecemeal. It's not connected overall throughout the city. And then we overlaid the bike incidents. So this is DOT data of vehicle incidents that included a bicycle. And this is from 2020 to 2025. And unfortunately, you can see that where many of the incidents are happening are actually where we have bike lanes in town already. So we can see that the existing infrastructure, what is there, is limited and is actually not increasing safety for cyclists. And so this is really informing our suggestions as to where additional infrastructure could be placed. And as we've been going through this process, we have this vision of having, a fully connected bike network throughout the city. But just to call out for today, these are our priority areas that have come up through this process. Identifying a primary north-south route through this, urban commercial core, downtown, trying to get to the primary destinations on Main Street and then getting up to the destinations on Silver Street as well. So finding the best north-south route that can be prioritized for cyclists. And then same thing, east-west routes. Today, we know that Main Street is going to be redeveloped and will be great for cyclists eventually. And then Silver Street has somewhat of a bike lane today, but it is not safe. And so, that absolutely could be improved. And then identifying an east-west route kind of in the middle of the city center as well to provide access, kind of halfway down the grid there. And then, as we've been speaking with the community, we've had a community meeting, we've had a survey, we've interviewed the bike shop owners, and the two major areas that continue to come up are Layden Road access, especially to the affordable housing neighborhood up there. There's not even a sidewalk to get up there today. And then Turner's Falls Road. We have a lot of Greenfield residents getting over to Turner's Falls and vice versa. Turner's trying to get into Greenfield, and even just seeing people walking on that road today is quite scary. And so these are our priority areas. Quickly just going through some north-south options here. We've mapped out and looked at the physical conditions of these 6 major north-south routes through the city center here. And so we're looking at the speed limits on these roads, the surface width of the road plus any sidewalk. We've also gotten right of way width data from Mass DOT as well. And so we can understand how much potential additional space is available on the side of the road to use. And then annual average daily traffic, trying to understand how many vehicles are on these roads each day. And then overlaying that incident data as well. So yeah.
Are you looking at traffic lane width as well?
Yes. Yeah. We have all of that data from Mass DOT. We have not ground truthed this data and gone out with a tape measure. So we're just hoping that what we have from them is accurate. I'm not going to walk through all of this, but just wanted to highlight, how much information can go into this analysis just from physical conditions alone. And when you stack these north-south routes up against each other, we know that Federal is dangerous today. It has 11 incidents out over the last 5 years for cyclists, even though it has a bike lane right now. And it has high daily traffic. That's the AADT number, average or annual average daily traffic. And so, as you play with these numbers, you can start to see if you add up the surface width and the sidewalk and you subtract that from the right of way width, you can understand how much space may be available for additional infrastructure there. And so Federal could have a lot of additional space for potentially a separated bike lane. as well as Elm here. And so we're going through these options, thinking about, where would be best to direct cyclists on a north-south route, either without additional infrastructure enhancements today, or if you are able to enhance the infrastructure and add a separated bike lane, we'll have kind of a, 2 levels of suggestions there. And other considerations, just wanted to call these out. Obviously, we need to consider where there's parking allowed on these streets. That affects where people can bike, in that right of way width. We know it's actively being used today with street trees and utility poles. So we can't just always assume that we can use that for bike lanes. Impact to stormwater infrastructure and pavement schedules. We're trying to see if any of the roads that are upcoming to be paved in the next few years maybe could have an added enhancement of a bike lane while you're doing that work. So these are things that we're thinking about to identify the north-south route in particular.
I'd say, well, the benefit of the north-south route is these long uninterrupted boulevards. East-west has a different set of challenges, namely a zigzag pattern for a lot of the streets and the train tracks. Train tracks are a huge one. Going from south to north, you have, the urban grid is sort of pinned between Silver and Main. So you have Main, where we're talking about improvements to the bike infrastructure. Moving up from there, you would have the Arch Street Tunnel, which is about 2,000 vehicles a day, I believe. And it's fairly narrow, has a undersized sidewalk on it. Seems to be a shortcut for that southern traffic. There's Allen Street Bridge. This is, I think, the intersection of Allen and Wells is reported to be the most dangerous in Franklin County. And if you are on that bridge, part of the problem is if you're going from east to west on there, there's a hill and it's a blind spot. You cannot see traffic in front of you. You can't see bicycles in front of you, and they can't put a stop sign there because there's not enough stopping distance. There's also a guardrail, so there's not even enough room for a bike lane there. That is probably the most traveled route right now if you're trying to go from east to west or west to east. The one that people don't really know about is Cleveland Street. That photo, I wrote Garfield on the photo, but that's Cleveland Street. Or Garfield.
I'm saying up here.
Cleveland Street, excuse me. Yes. That gentleman you see in the photo was crossing the train tracks on a very well-established path where the concrete plant is over there. And we spoke to several people who mentioned this as a popular route. I know high school students use it a lot because the high school is on Cleveland. Spoke to a father who works on Wells, and he says that's his route of choice just to avoid that bridge. Now, I walked that tracks right there. It's a blind corner coming under it. Something's going to happen eventually there if people keep crossing. I know the Complete Streets project identifies that as a potential. They want to put a fence in and just block it off, but people tend to go where they want to go. Again, as Grace mentioned, Silver has about 7,000 cars a day. Has a lane, but the lane is not buffered in any way. That's posted at 30 miles an hour, and I think prevailing speeds are around 40. Again, it's a hazard that needs to be addressed. So again, looking at these options, see a lot of opportunity in Arch Street and trying to prioritize that for cycling and direct people to there, whether that be deprioritizing it for vehicles or perhaps some sort of traffic calming measures there. I think that could be a real opportunity.
Arch Street.
Correct. Yeah, I think getting a little ahead of ourselves, but the Allen Street Bridge just has some things. Having spoken to the county, they feel there's certain realities there that just can't be addressed, namely not being able to four-way stop.
Why is that again?
So there's a certain amount of stopping distance you require for vehicles. So as they're coming from east to west over the Allen Street Bridge, effectively they can't see anything in front of them. There's a decent rise to account for the trains going below, and they can't put in a stop sign there because people keep rear-ending each other.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's a stop sign in Chapman on the other side.
on the other side of the street. There's a stop sign going the other direction.
So the bridge is in between. It's like
Yep.
equidistant from Wells to Chapman, and Chapman and Ellen has a stop.
Yes, it's something unique about the way when you're heading from east to west. They can't account for that.
Okay.
If you see if you're on Wells, the north-south stop signs are probably 3 times the size of a normal stop sign.
Yeah.
Again, these are all things in a north-south route you have to account for as well. People still will have to cross here. But if we're directing east-west traffic or, bikes and pedestrians, want to prioritize, a good lane here. Jumping ahead here. Again, talking about these east-west routes, sort of mapped out a couple that a lot of these streets come up in community feedback. Again, we've been reviewing prior documents, the Complete Streets work done in 2017, our own community meeting. We have a survey with about, I think, 75 respondents right now. And a lot of these streets come up. Just try to walk you through these two. If you're familiar with Beacon Field, that's over right below Poet's Seat. There's a trailhead that goes right up there. Beacon connects to the hospital. It also passes the middle school before you hit Pierce. That's a long straight stretch with low traffic that could potentially tie into, you could pass, say, a Davis north-south route. You could tie in there with proper wayfinding. You'd have good signs to direct people there. You'd have the option to cross at Allen. Again, we'll discuss that. Not ideal, but it is a fairly direct route. And people generally feel safer when they don't have to make a lot of turns and they just can kind of ride. That's, most efficient. Second route down there is a Maple Garfield, sort of with the preference of going to Arch and then ultimately Grove. Again, low traffic roads, opportunity for bicycle boulevard infrastructure, which is more prioritizing bikes over cars on those roads. Still allowing access to both, but making bikes feel like they can take the road there. Please.
One thought, as far as Allen,
Yeah.
I was attending the meeting you folks had, which was great, by the way. Thanks for doing that. And one of the respondents mentioned about having, feeling they couldn't, it's pretty steep incline going either direction on Allen, and they didn't feel they could take the lane and go fast enough. They feel pressured, so they go on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And so there is a crosswalk there across Chapman.
Yeah.
I wonder from the point of view of signage, wayfinding, if, because certain cyclists, I just take the lane there all the time. I've done it.
Yeah.
It's in state. But, we're trying to accommodate all level of cyclists, including parents, small children, et cetera. And I wonder if there could be some kind of wayfinding, because that is, like you show, it kind of, there's a directness to it. There could be some kind of signage wayfinding that helps people recognize it is a crosswalk, goes directly to that sidewalk. You can walk your bike over there and then continue. And then there's a crosswalk. When you get to Wells, you could cross over to the other side.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
And from conversations, I suspect there are people doing that.
Yeah.
Like I said, a gentleman crossing the train tracks with his bike said he feels safer doing that than taking his chances on Allen Street.
But that's an unrecommended use going across track.
Yeah,
This could be something using crosswalks and a sidewalk.
Absolutely.
Throwing that out there.
No, that's great. The other thing I want to just note on this graphic here, Allen to Arch is less than a 2-minute bike ride between those two, just to give you scale for what that requires. The brown lines on the east side of the map there, those are trail connections that have been identified. So if you were at the Beacon Field, there is a very wide right of way that's been flagged as a potential trail connector that would tie two sides of the neighborhood together, creating more cycling opportunities and letting commuters from the north side get down to the south, being able to avoid Federal and High and get downtown. The one you see in the southeast corner there, that is a city-owned parcel that's behind a bunch of houses. It's a popular neighborhood trail. I walked it myself. It connects to Spring Terrace, and from there you can get to downtown Greenfield quite easily without ever having on Federal or High. Which seems to be nice. Just thoughts.
One of the distinction between those two is that the Pierce and Federal intersection has a light.
Pierce and Federal has a light, correct?
Garfield does not. So like crossing Federal is a impediment, I would think, for people, especially I feel much more comfortable with my kids waiting for the light in the crosswalk and going at Pierce.
Yeah, and a lot of these are with the hopes that there are more, further infrastructure repairs. Federal obviously has a lot of incidents, and I hope that there are traffic calming measures that address those intersections too, certainly.
I was surprised to see the traffic wasn't as high as I expected on Federal. Conway was 50% more.
Conway is surprisingly high, and Silver is, very.
I understand that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Well, Conway, there's no stop.
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
straight shot from area.
That's why people are drawn to
That's
it.
it. From a
No
commuting
stop
standpoint.
sign.
Yeah. No, it's-
That's why it's high speed. Yeah.
It was more the number of cars than the speed
Oh,
that was marking up it.
but I mean, that's
That's why.
that's why.
Got it.
And just beyond the grid we've been discussing, north, south, east, west, sort of wanted to highlight some of the opportunities Greenfield has, where you have three rivers and you have parcels, you have the Riverside Greenway is a 1 mile bike route. We've been on all those photos are from the top two photos are from the bike path this weekend. Partially plowed, there's an encampment back there. It's an asset, it connects to the beach. It has the potential to connect to downtown with a couple little tweaks. The challenge is there's no connectivity to the neighborhood. You're looking at several large housing complexes and the jail. And from one end, the north end to the south end, you don't have any way to get in there. So those east-west routes we were just describing, which would end roughly at Elm, none of them would connect to that bike path as currently laid out. So there's this opportunity to look for connections. And we've identified a couple of them, specifically the woods at Oak Court. So there's the Oak Court housing complex right there. There is a parcel there, and it's owned by the Housing Authority. There is what we call it a habit trail. There's clearly footprints going down what looks like a road grid that was installed to put in sewers. That ties in directly to the bike path right where the underpass is to the beach. There is a potential connection there. It has been flagged in the Complete Streets back in 2017. I believe the city also owns, if you were to go north to Silver, there would be another opportunity just to follow the highway right there and connect. Again, there's opportunities there. It needs further investigation, but the potential to tie in the neighborhood is, I think, it's great benefits. In the south, you see the Miller's Meadow parcel. This has been much discussed. I think it's an unofficial dog park right now. And there's replanting efforts. I think it might be an MVP program associated with it. That parcel has an opportunity to extend the greenway quite easily. You have connectivity to GCC right there. Once that bridge is repaired over the highway, very easy connection to GCC. Now we're giving opportunities for college students to get to downtown once Main Street improvements have been done. And FERCog has flagged at Miller's Meadow the potential to have a footbridge over the Green River there, which would further allow you to get to River Street. And now we're talking about parcels such as the Mead Street parcel or Petty Plain Road, which again, you have, this is just a zoomed in graphic. I know we don't have a lot of time, but you have a potential to essentially have your little emerald necklace here where you could be chaining these parcels together and having an off-road route, ultimately getting possibly even to that Turner's Falls Road parcels where you can encircle the city with completely off-road cycling. That was a big vision, but just want to put it out there. We'll have your ear. You get Layden Road and Turner's Falls Road.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Leiden.
Leiden. Everyone's getting me on this one. Not from around here. So Leiden and Turner's, Grace mentioned, these have come up a number of times. I think the most recent fatality was on Leiden. And we're trying to be mindful of this and seeing the opportunities. I know there's potential for improving the bus system out there. I know they want to talk about putting a new bus stop and having some protection. There's talk of sidewalks, and we're discussing is that sufficient for giving access to that area? It's something to look forward to. We see there's a pretty sizable right of way according to our data, and would like to look more into that and see what opportunities there are to tie that into the grid.
On the sidewalk.
That is true, yeah. And again, Turner's Falls Road, there's a lot of passion about that and a lot of suggestions. Some of them out of the box, such as perhaps making it one way. Attempted to do a traffic count this weekend, very unofficial, inclusive. That idea, if you're not familiar with it, you have the Connecticut River, you have Turner's Falls Road, quite steep, very narrow, not likely enough room for a bike lane and a sidewalk. But again, it's a very popular route for people walking to and from the two towns, fairly perilous. So there's this idea that potentially with multi-stakeholder cooperation, you could tie those parcels between the river and the road and have, again, another off-road parcel. If you're familiar with First Light, their rec department has a large parcel right there. The city has several parcels, and I believe one of them is leased out to somebody for hay at the moment. That was what I was told. But there's, again, we're developing this concept right now. The idea you could potentially have a north-south off-road connector that goes all the way to the Montague City Bridge. Right, this needs further, research. It probably needs engineering, and this is a complex project, but we want to. And then, Canada Hill Road again, that's another one. This, the city has access on Canada Hill Road. Apologize, I don't have that map up there right now. But basically, there is a road at the bottom of Turner's that goes up and over, connects the 2A ultimately. Fairly steep grade though. Again, as we sort of go through this process, we're just looking to you when I ask, what other things should we be considering here? What conditions would you like to see? What output would be most helpful going forward? We're compiling a lot of this work. We're creating a document right now that we're going to hand off to the planning department in the city. And we want to know how we can best serve this process as we step away from it eventually. And then again, such as, perhaps using the sidewalks on those areas where we can't access or don't have room for the bike infrastructure. So just kind of wanted to pose that to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your presentation.
I think a dimension that I would want to see, I think it was implied or alluded to here and there, but just like with transit, we'll do what we can, but service is so poor. Or you're not going to transform the experience of using transit around here. But you add the bus stops, add the links where you can.
Yeah.
But I think that there could be a big opportunity from an economic development standpoint to do certain types of routes that might or might not be predicated on, safety or the shortest route from here to there. You talked about the loop, making these key little connections. And a lot of communities have seen there's a huge biking culture in this region. People come up from far and wide to bike out here, and people bike to breweries, they bike to restaurants, they bike to downtowns. And if Greenfield could be tied into the regional network in that way, and then also just if you could go for a ride with your family, like using the rivers, that's the thing that I would love to see. I know that there's lots of challenges and property ownership, whatever, but we ride to the Green River path. We live further away from the path than the path is long. So I get there and they kind of go there back and then back onto the street. But I think thinking about just from a recreational and economic development standpoint, what are the low-hanging fruit to string together something that might start to register on a regional bike network or something you would do on a summer day as part of your enjoying living in Greenfield. It isn't just about getting from here to there. But I think there also is a lot of people that where bikes are their primary form of transportation. So a lot of competing interests, but especially if there's just the one connection that could double the length or the one negotiation with the property owner along the river that can add another segment. Those get pieced together in those ways. You kind of think about them in both tracks and just be opportunistic and stringing them together.
Yeah, I wanted to, three things I want to mention. Regarding Gladden Woods and public transit, I've been on the FRTA Transit Advisory Committee for about 15 years. And I also, in my day job in human services, have worked with a lot of people who live at Gladden Woods. And up until about 2 years ago, we were the only transit authority in the state with no weekend service. And so it has, in the past few years, been reinstated. And there is a regular route that goes to Gladden Woods, and as I say, now it does happen because people were incredibly isolated up there. But it has been, and goes into the evenings on weekdays as well now. So it has been improved. Another thing, I'm trying to always be very careful to distinguish between any kind of personal input and representing the community as a whole. So one thing regarding Turners Falls Road, I'll mention that I brought up at the meeting you folks had, I was introducing it as an avid cyclist, is the issue with the speed limit. And I didn't know if that had been considered because I think having a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit there is incredibly unnecessary and raises the risk factor incredibly, and 30 miles an hour would be sufficient. And I don't know how difficult that would be given the status of the road to change that, but I think it would dramatically improve safety. So I just want to throw that out there. And then as far as, and I'll take my have a cyclist hat off and my planning board hat back on. And I know you mentioning about separated bike lanes, and I know that at the meeting, I won't, offer my preference or bias about this, but I know at the meeting, there were some people who were saying that's the only place they would want to ride, and there were some people saying they would never want to ride in a separated bike lane. People who are more seasoned and comfortable cyclists, and I wondered if in doing your study and making your recommendations, if there's been some consideration of what are the pros and cons of separated bike lanes, if they're being seen as they're the be all end all, they're the, the ideal accommodation, or if they're just one option that would be appropriate for certain situations, but not for others. So I just wanted to ask that question.
I mean, obviously, it's a matter of size first. Not every solution fits on every road, but what we've been looking at is safety and this concept of comfortability, where I think you mentioned it, where a seasoned rider feels more comfortable taking the bridge. We're thinking about all riders here. I think the fastest growing segment of cyclists is over 50 at this point. People don't realize that. Like, you have to think forward here, and we want new cyclists to feel comfortable riding in Greenfield. Doesn't matter if that's kids going to schools or somebody older who doesn't, have a car anymore. We need to prioritize those people who maybe don't feel comfortable right now, try to get them into that grid we're talking about. So I think the separated lane, it's more challenging to cycle because it requires a certain amount of that right of way we discussed. It would be ideal to have one somewhere. And I know we haven't gotten into the Main Street part of this. I believe that was one of the renderings I saw. I think that's a fantastic step in just getting people to feel comfortable with the cycling culture and trying to, cultivate that here. I think the town is very well suited for cycling infrastructure as it is. And the other thing here is roads where they're slow, 25 miles an hour or lower with low traffic counts below 2,000. These roads are pretty good as is. And if you're familiar with the sharrows, the shared arrows in the road, very low, easy intervention there. But the oversized ones where they really, make a statement and paint them green. On those small secondary roads, sort of as we saw on some of the east-west routes, that can be enough. So there are options. I think it would be ideal to have something separated so people feel comfortable. Again, the Greenway, the Riverway, that's going to feel more comfortable because you're not ever thinking about cars, you're never crossing a road. Don't have that luxury in the internal urban core, but you try to find solutions that make it more comfortable for everybody.
And to your point, I'll say that in the master plan, it specifies that a healthy cycling infrastructure or environment, ecosystem, I should say, accommodates cyclists of all ages and all abilities. So that is in our master plan. So
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'm not really familiar with bike lanes a whole lot, but a question for you. Are you looking at, you're saying a bike lane, let's pick Federal Street. Are you talking about a lane on either side? Are you talking about a lane wide enough for two-way traffic on one side, or what are you thinking?
It depends. There are levels of intervention, and I don't know if we can quickly pull this up from our presentation last week. We just had our midterm presentations, but again, it depends on where we're looking. Oh, sorry, this is a very long presentation. Here we go. Again, depending on, the speed of the road, the traffic volume, you require different levels of intervention of infrastructure. And that's kind of how we're calling it. And so, as Brian was saying, if it's a slow road with low volume, you might just want some signage and some, sharrows painted on the road. And then as the speed increases, the volume increases, you want more separation, more definition, right? And so what we're seeing in Greenfield today is these painted bike lanes in that, medium intervention space, as we see on Federal and on Silver. But that's also where we're seeing the incidents with cyclists today. And so they actually are not increasing safety like we would want. And so for a safer solution, you would want a protected bike lane Whether that's on, one on each side, going on either direction, or completely separated on one side of the road, depends on the width of the road, how much space you have on either side, how much impact it would take on, potential parking on the road. And so that's kind of the level of concept development that's outside of our scope. We can kind of get you to the point of saying, we think you need a high intervention solution on Silver, but we're not necessarily getting into the full engineering analysis of what solution actually fits there.
When you did your analysis of the incidents, did you find out what kind of incidents they were? Were they people being hit by cars traveling in the lanes? Were they hit by people entering the lanes? What was
There's a mix. We frequently saw the incidents at intersections. And so it's with cars turning
Turning to
and
the left.
cyclists turning. There were a few, incidents where cyclists ran into parked cars. And yeah, some just in lane travel. So
And
it's
the
a
reason I asked the
range.
question about the bike lanes is thinking if you have it on one side and the traffic and the bikes is going both ways, and let's say I'm at the intersection and I want to turn to the right.
Mhm.
I'm going to take a quick look over this way and make sure there's no one coming. I'm not really going to look this way.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm going to pull out and this bike is going to be coming this way. but I'm-
Absolutely.
So that's my concern about, unless you had it sort of set back from the street something and there was a
Mhm.
clear,
Yep.
hey, bike traffic is clear,
Right.
so you actually have to stop before, it's not, something that's my concerns, because that
Intersections.
almost
are tough.
happened to me.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I'm looking this
absolutely.
way and there's a bike coming this way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a big piece of this that we've also been discussing and is, technically outside of our scope, but has come up a lot in the community conversations is, safety education for cyclists, but also for drivers. And as you identify these primary routes through town and you start putting up signage around town and you get people comfortable with, okay, cyclists are going to be using this road because it has been prioritized by the city, then maybe the vehicle drivers will also become more aware and know, to look left and right when they're pulling
And I
out.
assume cyclists using public roads have to follow traffic laws.
Yes.
Stop at a stop sign.
Correct.
Can't go through a stop sign.
Correct.
That's because they stopped, it's still red, they're not supposed to go, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're supposed to.
I
I yell at them all the time as I'm, they go by.
Yes.
You're in the public lane, you need to follow my laws as well.
Yeah.
Supposed to.
But also, as someone operating a vehicle, you have to realize you have lethal deadly force with your vehicle.
I'm not
So
saying anything
no,
about
no,
me.
not criticizing you. Just
I'm talking about them, if I'm pulling through the intersection
Yeah,
and the guy on the bike doesn't stay behind the red
of
light,
course.
he comes through the red light, I'm like, wait a minute.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like actually one of the important things about trying to do a project like this, where you want infrastructure in place where cyclists, it is intuitive ultimately. Right now you have a lot of cyclists who are on roads that were designed for automobiles and they're adapting to the conditions when, something separate would make more sense. No driver wants to hit a cyclist. You don't have to be somebody who rides a bike to want to invest in cycling infrastructure. You want to have safe streets. You want families in your town. So yeah, I think it benefits everyone ultimately, and they'll follow the rules if the rules are intuitive. That's
And then I heard you mention right of ways with trees and poles.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to take away the trees.
no.
No.
That's a big discussion we'll already have.
Oh, yeah.
Don't suggest taking down the trees to build a bike.
No, one of our faculty is on the Greenfield Tree Committee.
Oh, there you go, there you go.
We have been
I think one challenge is the bike infrastructure is kind of marginalized. Like the Federal Street has a path, and like I use it. But you don't feel like you're in the bike lane. You feel
Right.
like it's not clean. It's got a bunch of like gravel stuff in it, and like that's an interesting one where if you were to consolidate the bike lanes on one side, you're not going to run it. It's not like there's just hundreds of bikes in every direction. And you're going to run into each other. If you had 8 feet for a two-way bike lane instead of 2 4-foot strips that are sort of drainage ditches. And I don't know if you could get away with vertical separation like that, but then it would feel, okay, that's a bike lane and that's the road. Right now, it's like the road that bikes sometimes are on. So then
Right.
it's easier to prompt drivers to look when they're crossing that, yeah, there might be a bike, like the bike path through Montague, when you are coming down whatever road that is, and you cross it, it looks way different. It isn't just
Right.
a line on there's signs and you see the path. So formalizing the infrastructure, Main Street will take care of that too.
I'll just offer in this, oh, you want to go?
Go ahead, George.
I'll just offer in response to that, a separated path. And I know what you're talking about. You pause and let the bikes go through. It's just fundamentally different than a bike lane that is integrated into the road, because the bike is traffic. It's a great documentary, We Are Traffic. And so you want it ideally, kind of to Victor's point, flowing with the traffic. And so the cars know they're coming in the same direction as the traffic. And I don't want, with these bikes, electric bikes, electric motorcycles, I refer to them as, going 30 miles an hour with novice drivers coming at me with these huge things, and they don't know what they're doing. That's inherently more dangerous, I think. So I think you have to have one way, unless it's a very specifically designed thing. So I just think having them, and maintenance is a big issue, as you're pointing out, is having them cleared, because a lot of times I have to, and you have a right to take the lane or take as much as you need to avoid road hazard.
Right.
That's in Massachusetts law, but it's better if you don't have to,
Yeah.
to avoid, debris and stuff like that. So maintenance of them is important, and maintaining the painting and stuff like that. But thanks.
I have a couple of questions and things to bring up. So what is going to be the role of traffic calming in your report or your findings? And have you talked to the DPW about possibility of traffic calming measures, and how did they feel about it?
Yeah, we have not been able to speak with DPW. We are
Okay.
in contact with them, but they are quite busy these
Yes, with
days.
all the snow and
Yes,
everything going on. Yes, understandably.
Yeah. I think again, traffic calming is, part of that concept development that would come after the scope of our project, where we can highlight these are, critical areas of conflict between vehicles and cyclists.
Mhm.
And then I think the traffic calming solution would come in that concept development phase afterwards.
Mm.
We're calling it out as an option. It is for vehicles specifically, but cyclists benefit from it as well. I don't know if you've gotten any further into that at all.
No, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure, yeah.
I mean, like as a member of the planning board and as someone who lives in Greenfield, I've really wondered, like, where are the traffic calming measures in
Yeah.
Greenfield?
Yeah.
Where are
Yeah.
they? But I haven't been able to talk with anyone at DPW myself, and it hasn't really come up with the planning board as, just an idea. But it's been something I've thought about a lot, because I really do care about the pedestrian experience in
Yeah.
Greenfield. And then bringing in another thing that I wanted to bring up, during your presentation, it kind of dawned on me, like, the pedestrian experience and the biker experience are very linked for me, because when I think about biking, I think about children biking to school, which hasn't come up in your presentation yet, but those children biking to school are most likely going to use the sidewalks, like
Yeah.
within a few block radius of the school.
Right.
I know one of your questions was like, using sidewalks, but it's gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think very many parents are going to say, no, child of mine, don't go on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
because it's not allowed. Like, you have to, or maybe it is for children,
It's legal for anybody to bike on the sidewalk,
Okay.
in
except for
this-
on Main Street, maybe.
in the central commercial district.
Okay,
Currently,
yes.
that according to the current Greenfield law.
Okay, well,
Right.
thank you, George.
Yeah.
So that's why we were calling that out for,
Yeah.
Leiden Road. If
Mhm.
you only had room for sidewalks or bike lanes, go sidewalks, because
Mhm.
that is in a residential zone. Then cyclists could use that.
Yeah.
Also.
And they will, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. But the schools are definitely a hot topic in our project
Uh-huh.
for sure, as a primary destination for the residents of the town. And so
Yeah.
we're calling those out as we're looking at the possible routes through the town to make sure that we're accessing or servicing the school zones.
Mhm.
And a lot of those are tied into residential areas, like Davis Street has a sidewalk, which is great. And so you kind of want to, the way that we're thinking about it is potentially prioritize bike routes on roads that already have sidewalks. just to allow for that, alignment of pedestrian and cycling use.
And that's one of the challenges of a student project where we realize those two things are linked and we have to really focus on the cycling aspect of this, even though so many things can do both. And it's a unique challenge in the process we're doing right now. But we acknowledge that certainly.
I think the point you made that the 20, 25 mile an hour roads are just safe. Like, so when we're trying to ride across town, there's the parts that I'm nervous about with the kids, and then there's the parts, okay, we're past that part now, just whatever. It's the middle of the road, who cares? Because it's the road that no one drives on there. It's feels safe. So like mapping those roads would reveal where the breaks are in that fabric. Holding the two, we've talked about two types of cycling infrastructure, recreational, so the separated path, and then I think what George is talking about, which is more on the road. This is a transportation use, not a recreation use. So maybe holding those to different standards and thinking about maybe they can be one and the same, but those are two different functions and you need to have complete networks for both potentially. And I think of value to the community, the council, anybody else moving forward is those interesting observations you made about these little links you can make. I mean, I think everyone has their personal laundry list of their little design lines, but to have that inventory as best you can, even if it isn't on your recommended route, to just point out some of those things, because at some point someone can look at, and we're about to change this road, like you said, if they're changing a paving or they're rebuilding a bridge, like it'll help bring those things to the surface, and those little tiny links can have an outsized impact on connectivity and can link a whole other neighborhood to the
And those will be
network.
documented.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a good time to be walking around town because the snow actually shows where people are moving,
Yeah, that's right.
even if there isn't
Oh, interesting.
a road or a sidewalk there, so.
Also, last thing, we talked a lot about Montague. Deerfield is also a place to connect to. I will go over like Up River Road and then get on the bike path back there. Problem is that you get people to Deerfield and then that's Deerfield's problem, but Deerfield, especially old Deerfield Academy could stand to be better connected to Greenfield.
Yes.
They fill the restaurants when it's parents' weekend. The kids could ride into town if it were safe.
Yeah.
So rolling out the carpet for Deerfield to tie into it. They've got their own problems on 5 and 10, but that's just as important of a link. It's a differently important link as Montague. I think more people go between Montague and Greenfield just for day-to-day business, but Greenfield has potential too. I mean, Deerfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I've long talked about that because it's a 3 mile stretch from the town line down to the entrance to Old Deerfield. And I biked it hundreds. I bike commuted for 8 years to Northampton and biked it hundreds of times. And, a lot of seasoned cyclists feel comfortable doing that. But I envision, families wanting to get to Old Deerfield or commuters wanting to get to Old Deerfield. And then there's plenty of recreational or, commuting options going beyond that. And it's just, it would be lovely to have an off-road connection. I think of it starting in, what's the park down there?
So
Off of,
there is a project that's been flagged that it would require cooperation between both towns.
of course.
It's Petty Plain Road.
Yeah. And the park down there, which
Yes.
the name of the park, where the dog park is.
Yes, with the dog.
Green Park.
Yeah, Green River
Yep.
Park. And then and I've biked on from Old Deerfield. There's a long farm road that comes
Yep.
up. I put in the CPA request to explore that and it got
So that
shot
was,
down, but
that originally came up in, I want to say 2014 in a plan.
before that.
And I know it's been reported on in the local paper. And then in 2024, FERCog flagged it as one of their priority projects.
Years before.
Okay,
I
yeah.
studied this in doing my CPA request, but it's been for years they've had it on there. And that would be so fantastic. You can ride it for a couple of some miles from Old Deerfield. You can ride on that dirt road.
Yeah, so there's your Petty Plain Road.
Just jump the river.
That's the dog park. And the city owns this. And I think from the description, the idea was to have a path going here
Mhm.
and connecting to the Deerfield.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
And then a bridge
That's great.
and being able to cooperate with Deerfield to get on this
Yep.
rural road.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
would allow you to have a very, rural experience connected to
Yep.
Old Deerfield Village.
Yeah, there's a long dirt road there I've ridden on, so.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about with trying to create the bigger network where I do think Greenfield has you have 3 rivers.
That would
like
be
aliens, you know, and I know there's private landowners to contend with, but that is owned by the city.
Like Deerfield Academy is an endowment larger than most.
Okay.
Acres of it.
Yeah.
That would be really cool for that.
Yeah, that would be cool for them.
Yeah.
They're paying for the bridge.
Yeah, we'll name it after them.
You just need to guilt them into investing more in Greenfield, at least even indirectly.
But that would be such an amazing thing from a tourism, commuting, recreation point of view, all the uses
Don't
for
even
a
get my
bicycle.
hopes up. Don't get my hopes up.
Anyway, glad you mentioned that because it's been my pet project for years.
Back on the front burner. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, appreciate your.
Wonderful work.
Great.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
of course.
We are working on this through the beginning of April, and so we'll have kind of an end result to share with you all then.
Okay,
If there's anything else that comes up that you guys think about, Ella can share our contact information. I know you joined our community meeting, so thank you for that.
Sure, no, it's great. And is the survey still live?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And is that still being advertised or anything or?
That's it. Yeah, we're doing an interview with the Granville Recorder right
Oh,
this week, so we're gonna try to keep that going.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And how, when you finish your report, how is that coming out? Are you doing, I know you're not doing another event, you said, but how is that? gonna
No, we should be able to email it out is my thought. I mean, we will have printed versions to give to Ella and Amy. But I think we should be able to email it out, and we have the contact information of the people who joined the community meetings. We
Okay.
should be able to share that. We can discuss.
Mhm.
Great.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful project. Thank you for your hard work. Great point about it's a great opportunity with the snow.
Yeah.
Find out where, I hadn't thought of that.
Well, it's a-
Find where people are walking.
Brian has been finding the.
Yeah.
For example, you get on Main Street, you can see where the center hasn't been cleared, and that could be like that, exactly. It could be a pedestrian island. You know, and say, oh, nobody's driving there. That actually could be a place pedestrians cross to or a wheelchair gets to.
Uh-huh.
So just things like that, or there used to be on site.
Huh. Cool.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that's fantastic.
Okay. Next item, presentation and discussion of draft Flip Street RFP, including potential design guidelines in the RFP.
Presentation might be charitable. Conversation.
There is a 2-page material both online available to the public as well as to the board. So it's the cover of the draft RFP, just so you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And then draft development objectives with proposed design guidelines that really, so that can be something that we review in addition to whatever Amy's gonna present.
Sure. So I thought I would just give you a quick high level of where we're at in the process, which is right at the start. If you recall, the city surplus the property back in July. There was a referendum. The referendum failed. And so we're now, as part of that process, I had promised to city council that I would engage in community engagement and gather public input to help inform and shape the RFP. That process started Monday of this week. We had our first public meeting at the John's On. I'm doing a series of public meetings, precinct 5 focused meetings, and then Zoom office hours and coffee and beer office hours, pick your poison, throughout the month of March and into early April. And then I will take that public input and shape it into the RFP. So what you have here is just the very first stab at putting something down on paper to give me and you something to chew on. And I wanted to, at the start of this process, come to you all with this first thought and just get your first take and your input and your thoughts around the usability of design guidelines and language such as this for the Hope Street lot, any concerns you might have with this type of language. If you think that this might be too restrictive for prospective developers, or if you think this language is helpful guidance. If you'd rather language that I think the language can sometimes skew towards things that we're encouraging, or it can skew towards things that we would like to discourage. So if you have thoughts about phrasing of the language that way, all of that would be welcome input tonight, and I'm happy to come back and do this again, but I wanted to at least get you in the conversation early in the process.
I forgot to add, as part of the framing, of course, we've been discussing design guidelines now for 1 or 2 meetings, so you'll see some of the language is very familiar and was.
Yes.
With thanks to Ellen.
Well, I really remember Michelle for his draft design guidelines, and I think that this RFP could potentially provide an early, in fact, immediate opportunity to start implementing the design guidelines. And certainly we should think about not being overly restrictive so that the RFP is successful. But if we're going to have design guidelines adopted by the time there's a project that's pursuing a permit, we want to try to at least signal the direction we're heading so there's no surprises.
And I did say to Ellen that I think that the design guideline language from my perspective could be helpful to me as a tool or tools for taking the public input, which can sometimes get a little hyper specific or targeted, and turning it into language that both addresses the community's desires, but makes sense to a developer and makes sense in the context of an RFP. So I'm excited about the prospect of using that language here.
The first thing that jumped out at me is the type of housing you're suggesting. It says up to and including. I would much rather see it pushing market housing as the priority as opposed to subsidized housing.
It's funny you say that, because when I sat down and I was sitting over there watching the bike presentation and reading this, I thought the same thing and was surprised I had written that sentence, truth be told. Market rate will be prioritized, but will not be mandated.
Oh, correct. You know, and even it comes down to some sort of a percentage or something in there. I just think we need to get more market rate housing in here for the young working couples that we're trying to attract into the town.
Sure, though I think the young working couples we're trying to attract into town maybe are at the high end of affordability as opposed to market rate. But yes, your point is well taken. And I think, yes, I think we are prioritizing market rate at this site. And we, as a city, one of our goals is to have a variety of housing options at all levels, which I think is where I had started with this sentence, is that we need all the types of housing. And we've got a lot of affordable development underway. And so it would be great to see market rate, whether that's feasible or realistic. We shall
Well, just something where, you know, I've got a daughter and her fiance who are making like pretty good living. And they're always cut out of these projects because they make too much money, right?
Yeah.
But they don't make that much money.
Mhm.
So unless there's something done with how we define affordability, you know, right now, so we had something in our rules that says you can make 100% of the median income and still be considered eligible for affordable housing. I thought that was pretty interesting. But, you know, it needs to go beyond that. If we're willing to go that far, it should be, okay, you know, if you can pay whatever 25% of your income is. That was the rule of thumb I used when I grew up. 25% of my income pays for my rent. So if that's a criteria, says you know, this is 25% of your income, this is what this will rent for or whatever, that's something. But I wanted to try and say.
I think for
My concern is that when you talk about affordable housing, that's usually implying impoverished, to use the word. So I don't want to be attracting impoverished people. The only people we attract are impoverished people.
Can I ask,
sure.
do we have a read on in the downtown area with current housing and housing that's in the pipeline? What is the range, or what is the percentage of affordability versus market rate, affordable versus market rate?
There are between 60 Wells, Wilsons, and 176 Main. I don't believe there are any true market rate. It's all varying levels of affordable, but I think the highest.
But I mean, also current. So you have some housing right near.
So for now, there is, yes, there is market rate, true market rate housing downtown currently.
I mean, right near Hope Street and all of
In
there.
fact, on, I believe, Hope Street.
Yeah, there's I can't remember the.
Zacchios.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Is that all market rate?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just wondering if we have a sense of, in the downtown particular,
I don't, but that's a great question.
because we're trying to supplement, in some ways with this project,
Yep.
that, figure, what, to some extent. I mean, I get it about, we have an impression, we don't want to veer too much to one side or another, but it'd be good to know what's where.
My assumption is that most developers go with these affordable housing because it's guaranteed income. They know it's gonna get filled. You do market rate, you gotta hope someone wants to rent it. So there's a risk.
But across the street, Zacchio is all market rate.
I know,
That's
but
what
I'm saying that's, I think from the developers. Developers kind of why they want to build one of the to another. It's always more costly or a risk to build a speculative house. That's what market rate is, speculative.
Well, there's more subsidy to build affordable, but the high-end affordable housing effectively in Greenfield is market rate.
I think the subsidy just makes it financeable and possible at all. If any developer would love to have a financeable market rate project in Greenfield, but there just isn't, you can't get the money for it. In part because they don't believe that the market would support it, but also the bank. And even if the developer believes in it, the bank doesn't believe in it. That's who needs to really believe.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Well,
If
right,
they don't think we can fill up affordable, they don't think we can fill market rate housing in our town, we got a problem.
But the other thing is market rate is a very relative term. And when you're not getting subsidy, it's basically just what is necessary. It costs so much to build, like firm is working in Minneapolis right now. And across the entire region, there's 2 or 3 communities that can support market rate housing. All the rest of them cannot. And those are like $4,000 apartments. I mean, that's a very high priced, fancy neighborhood. I wouldn't be talking about that here. But the point is just that it's never been harder to make market rate work. That said, maybe a local person could figure it out. I think it's not impossible. I'm optimistic about the purchasing power of people in this region, the creativity of the developers, but it's more likely that there's more people that would be looking to integrate some subsidy. That doesn't mean it has to be entirely subsidized though. There's like a lot of the projects that are coming online in town now are mixed. It's a mix of subsidies. The capital stack has some tax credits, but it also has some fully market rate units.
oh, I was just going to say that the vacancy rate is so low. Like they're definitely, I'm sure that the market rate housing will find people to live
I would hope so.
there. Yeah. But Jeff knew a lot more about financing than I
I don't like
knew.
the situation. I think
Yeah,
the market rate could be possible, it could be possible, but that's just what the industry
Yeah.
would tell you, I think. Not everybody, but many people. So it's good that we have, it's all technically on the table. Like you said, it's not like one is off the table.
No, because I think realistically, in order to make it pencil out, you're probably gonna wind up with a mix of market rate and affordable, just.
But we can leave it
But
to developers.
Right, the RFP, you are correct, but I can better clarify my language to prioritize market rate.
The way this was read, they don't have to
Yep.
put any in there. It would be completely subsidized housing up to and including. So if they say, well, we don't think market rate will work, so we're not gonna.
Well,
So I can clarify that, but also, go ahead, George.
Well, I read this differently and I was comfortable with this language. And I read it to mean it should include some market rate housing. I thought that's what this meant.
There's no should in it, no shall. It's just up to and including.
Well, I think if I could,
Multiple housing options, including market rate housing
Up
So-
to.
and including, so.
I can wordsmith that language, but what I would also say is you're seeing one page of a whole lot, including what will be criteria on which we grade the responses to the RFP. And that criteria will have, you get more points if you are 100% market rate, and you get
Right,
less
right.
points the less market rate. And so when we're adding up how we're grading the responses, that's really where the rubber meets the road in terms of
Thank you.
prioritizing. But
But I was just saying, I appreciate Victor's initial response as one planning board member. I just wanted to make sure the whole planning board weighed in, because I was comfortable with this language, and I didn't know about the other two present planning board members.
Thought the basic guidelines you had in there were good, very good. I mean, it's just, it's a start. You know, telling people what to expect, what to do, what we're looking for. I tend to be more prescriptive and say, you're gonna do this. I know that's not the feeling of the board, so. That's fine.
Yeah, I like this, and I did appreciate it, as Ella was referencing, that this captured a lot of what, Victor, you had put together in your proposal, and a lot of language about reflecting existing neighborhood character, human scale, engaging pedestrian experience, having, you know, entrances, lobbies, non-residential uses, you know, to the main street, green elements, and but also at the same time not being overly prescriptive in design requirements. So I was overall, and adding green space. So I was overall comfortable with anything.
And I will say that this is, again, I haven't done the public engagement yet. So
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
just here's what it might look like.
Mhm.
I could find out 3 weeks from now that I'm way off base.
Glad it's moving forward.
You and me both.
A few other little things. The
Sure.
site 3, look at any parking in the rear or under. I think you could just get rid of the word underground. That's
Mhm. That's what again?
You're just never gonna. No one's gonna build underground parking.
Right.
Really?
Maybe we need to say
It's,
ground level.
honestly, it may, yes, I can take it out, no problem. I hear that all the time, and it may feel responsive to folks to include that or underground.
Or okay, fine. Right, like you could say
I mean,
under the structure or something. Like one thing you can do is
Ground level
you're
parking.
on the ground, but it's like tucked
Yep,
under
yeah,
the
yeah.
building. Just an underground parking space costs
Yeah,
10
no.
times as much as a
Mhm.
even a structured one. So
But you were,
just to, but yeah, I guess, I mean, to be diplomatic and reflective of the things we hear, as long as it's or, and it's not mandating something that's
Oh, definitely not,
unlikely,
yeah.
but, you know, worth considering. Related to that, the last point, viable redevelopment plan with minimal on-street parking demands. Like one of the things that would have, the surface parking is going to drive the housing density in many ways on the site, because it's displaces building, you have to have a certain amount of parking there theoretically. So it should seem okay to utilize the public parking supply that exists in a way that's managed. So like referencing the garage, for example, or, you know, doing, so I get that there was a lot of sensitivity about on-street parking demand on Oak Street, and people might feel if you don't build enough parking on site here, that parking will spill over.
mhm.
But if there's a strategy, like a way to manage off-street parking that, or off-site parking. That isn't just, well, they'll park wherever they park, but the developer will take responsibility for getting garage.
Right, and that's what I was trying to say in this sentence, but I guess I didn't do a good job, is that I want them to present a plan of how they will deal with parking with their residents, and not just like, best of luck,
Yeah, okay.
find a spot.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
When you said redevelopment plan, what did redevelopment mean?
It meant that I didn't delete the R and the E from development plan.
Thank you.
The one, the 2B4, high percentage of transparency. I wonder if you could qualify that as for non-residential uses. What do we think about that?
Not apartments.
Yeah. The blinds are on all the time.
Well, it could be a residential building with a lobby
Mhm.
that has glass that's transparent.
Yeah, for the public area. But
Right,
like if it's a
yeah.
housing building with housing on the ground floor, those units will have windows up high with the blinds drawn all the time. It is grade separated, like maybe the building might be. Those, depend on how they handle the grade, but
Like a qualifier on that for,
Like lobbies of commercial space.
Mhm.
like for
Oh,
public spaces,
yeah.
publicly occupied spaces such as lobbies and retail.
Right.
Or you could leave it simple and say like prioritizing an engaging pedestrian experience at the ground level,
We could have a little, sometimes they have
whatever
like
that means.
a little balcony or something, or a stoop or.
Yep.
And transparency means glass, right?
yes.
I mean, we know that. I don't know. if other people-
Architecture that reflects the local design vernacular. What does that mean to the board or maybe to you?
Where are you talking about? Where, that's,
For the person in number four.
Glass and chrome next to red brick.
It could mean a lot of things. It's easier for me to identify, I guess, what it doesn't mean. I think now that the courthouse and the library are in that neighborhood, it could mean a lot of things.
It's a question that's come up in our design guidelines conversations is
Mhm.
what do we do about architectural style? Do we do anything? Do we say it should be contextual and just leave it, or do you try to be prescriptive?
Right.
We haven't finished that conversation yet, so I just thought the board might want to.
Because number 3 we say complements and number 4 we say reflects. That's
Yeah, I'm trying, I think, to not be terribly prescriptive,
Yeah.
but to
Yeah.
avoid the cement block, terrible building.
say that.
Not brutalist.
Shiny white face of Wilson's on downtown.
I am the one human that actually likes the old shiny face of Wilson's.
Those letters off that
Yeah,
building.
get the letters out.
To the neon graveyard.
Yeah, those
It's
three
just
and
nostalgic.
I can wordsmith 3 and 4 or play around with it. I'll be curious to see how your conversation here goes and maybe it'll come up with something good.
People talk about
Mhm.
what is appealing. I think of the sicko sign that people love over Fenway Park. It's just, is that good design? Is that good?
It's my screensaver on my phone 99% of the time. I love that sign. So yeah,
It is
good
so funny.
design. Yeah.
It's just so funny. That's become such an icon and it just happened to be outside of Fenway Park.
You never know.
Yeah.
So I guess that one is one if you keep it vague, we can fill in the lines a little bit through our conversations about, we really won't address architectural style.
Yep.
And then number 5, again, you put incorporating green elements is strongly encouraged. And then, you get to rate the,
Yes, and that would be again,
Proposals,
down in the criteria, there
Yeah.
would be more specific language and points awarded.
in particular interest in reducing impermeable surfaces.
Yes.
So by green there, you mean sustainable, green in that sense of the word? Or also,
The color green.
Yeah, sustainable. I was gonna make a slide and then I thought, no, maybe this is a serious question.
there's two concerns combined in number 5. One is sustainability, low impact design, those sorts of things. The other is green space and recreation, usable green space.
I meant door number 1, low impact sustainable design.
Like adding green space, that might be a separate
Got it.
item and something I think we should be careful with because you can whittle away a lot of you set an expectation that there's going to be some pocket park, some playground or something, then we've just lost half the site.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't necessarily for many people the worst thing.
That's true. I guess that's my personal opinion.
Yep, I can clarify then to make sure that it's not green space. Would you be interested in having me come back later on in the process to talk again? Okay.
I think, so what is your time frame for, how many meetings? 14, 5?
1,000 meetings during the month of March. The last meeting is April 2nd. And or first week of April, I don't remember if it's actually the second. At those first week of April meetings, I'm hoping to come back with some draft RFP language. Just to be able to talk to the community and say, this is the type of input I heard, and this is what that input looks like translated into RFP speak, so that we can have a back and forth about that. And then I expect to be finalizing the RFP during the month of April, though that timeline could change based off of a variety of topics that you all might discuss. So,
I think it'd be worth reconnecting
okay,
if you can.
yeah, I can come whenever you would like.
We've been looking for a test case for we were using the East Hampton project instead because like projects in Greenville are a little too close to home, a little too charged.
Log on, yeah.
So if we've had another meeting or two, and I guess we'll just have had one by then, we can give you another.
I'll still be writing, I'm sure, in April, and
Would you reference like even if the RP goes out, reference the fact that there are design guidelines in development? Is that a scary thing to put in there?
Yeah.
I think so.
Do you think so?
I guess I'm trying to time, I think it would depend on what your timeline was. If your timeline was that the design guidelines were going to be in place, I presume actually this would be the case before a developer was at the permit process, then they should know that.
Yeah.
No.
In which case I would indicate it. If your conversation goes such that you don't think that's a thing that's going to happen, I wouldn't want to scare them away or mislead someone into being worried about something that doesn't come to pass. So I guess we'll find out.
There's a couple of, so one of the things we talked about is having an incremental approach to the design guidelines. It starts with us just clarifying what our perspective is about things we already have the power to govern. That's not a zoning change or anything. It's just like we talked about trees. We already believe we can, like in the zoning as it stands today, can regulate required trees in certain circumstances. So we work with the tree committee to develop some tree guidelines so we can provide specific guidance to people, not to say more trees.
Yep.
And without anything further. So it might be that we start with things that we already have the power to control and we're just clarifying. But we've also talked about how it would be helpful to have a code change that references the design guidelines, that even if it isn't giving us all sorts of new power, it's clarifying that we have something to reference. So it might remain to be seen. So maybe when you come back, we'll have one more conversation and we can at least do another audit like this and make sure that there isn't something that would likely be in conflict. So that'd be
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Okay, that would be great. And I can give you the full RFP then, or the full draft.
Yeah. Makes sense. Including those criteria, which would be interesting, right?
Yes.
This will be in there, yeah. Anything else, guys?
Nope. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you so much for
All the other stuff you're doing to,
taking it around.
thank you for inviting so many people to participate.
I don't know if you ever introduce yourself.
Oh, at the first public meeting, I didn't introduce myself at all, and I got maybe 10 minutes in, and a woman was asking about the RFP process, and I was saying I was going to write it, and she goes, "Who are you?" I'm Amy Kaling. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Greenfield.
Oh.
No, it's apparently, I guess, a thing that I do at public meetings is not introduce myself. I died. Anyway, okay.
Nice to meet you.
It was great to meet you as well. Glad to see you all. Thank you.
Discussion of potential zoning amendment related to shelter facilities, including review of the draft amendment prepared by planning board member Philip.
Could I just, as a preface to this item, mention that I had recently recused myself from a discussion of the project related to the shelter because the current shelter is a CSO it's managed by CSO, and clinical and sport options, and I'm a CSO employee. On the other hand, I feel comfortable participating in this because this is not specific, doing a potential ordinance, amendment to the ordinance is not specific to CSO. It would just be for any potential shelter facility. And note that a few years ago, and for many years, this shelter was run by Service. So it's a compromise or
Their approvals in the past now, so.
yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Thanks.
Good, but appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
So. Ella, do you want to say anything to just?
Sure, yeah, so, this agenda item was added, Mr. Michelle sent a email with a draft shelter definition for zoning amendment. A few weeks ago, not within the past 2 weeks. And I had actually considered the need for the same thing. I think given the development activity in Greenfield around shelters, it makes sense to be more intentional about how we regulate them and define them. To be clear, the 6 Arch Street, the recent 6 Arch Street site plan review was based on it being a mixed residential business use. That's why they're eligible for site plan review, in addition to the Dover Amendment. And I think if they were mixed use, but they might be more closely aligned with the shelter definition. So thank you, Mr. Michelle, for drafting a zoning amendment. I refrained from suggesting any edits to that, but I did want to just provide for the board a little bit of background information. So one was the list of definitions of residential uses that we have in our current code, just to kind of cross-reference what's already there. And then 2 definitions of shelters from 3 other municipalities. So I looked in East Hampton and Montague and didn't find anything, but Northampton, Holyoke, and Worcester. Sorry. I went to, anyways, defines shelter. So I thought that might be helpful to the board as you refine the proposed definition. And I'm happy to do any further drafting or editing, but appreciate this first draft.
Very helpful for context. In addition to the draft usage director. One thing I want to note is I'm on the Mass Planners listserv. I saw that you posted just to ask for other people's opinions on this too. So for those who don't know, the planning community in Massachusetts has a really active listserv. People can pose questions and get reactions, and a lot of people responded.
Well, I'm realizing I went to my spam. I didn't.
Oh, really?
receive any of
It
those.
was one of the more popular posts. In the,
Thanks for bringing that up. At least you forgot that.
because you really got a lot of people.
Oh, wow. I haven't received any of those. All right. Thank you.
Spam filters can be
For like
intense.
Don't ever check my
The
forum.
spam word.
Oh,
I just
man.
got-
No, it's
Digest.
just the nature of listservs. It's like spam filters really
Yeah, right.
catch a lot of those. Yeah.
And they reformatted it recently, so maybe it's coming from a new server, so maybe you have to update your, well, what I wanted to say was.
Okay, yeah.
The AG's office replied, in addition to, so. And they want to talk, like, they provided some documents, some references. It seems like we have access to more resources that can help guide us in this, and it might make sense to, I think, talk about it today, so we all know what we're talking about, but it might be that we're going to get a lot of help from the planning community to supplement what we've done so far. And it might make sense to make a final decision once that's all hit your inbox.
Okay, I did do some research on the Dover Amendment and withheld that from the memo, but feel prepared to answer. As well.
And you gave us that information in a previous.
Yeah.
Package, yeah. I mean,
But how it relates to sober homes.
okay,
I know that it closely relates to sober homes, which is a different definition, but it is related to some of our housing.
For home.
So yes, sober homes is a use category. So the Dover Amendment, which we discussed is 6 Arch Street, so it's part of Chapter 40A, Section 3, protects against housing discrimination against people with disabilities. And that has been interpreted to include people with substance use disorders. So you can't, as a municipality, single out people who are living together and recovering from addiction from other people who are living together, if in all other ways they're the same. Now, so there's this category of sober homes where people are recovering together. That is different than a shelter where there is services provided, but perhaps that's what the Attorney General was responding to.
Like a halfway house? Because we had to identify halfway houses and the same thing, a sober home and a halfway house? No.
Northampton defines halfway house a little differently. My interpretation of Northampton's definition of halfway house was a shelter, but I guess there's some similarity.
I was gonna say, I mean, I've had over the years, both when it was ServiceNet for a long time and since it's been under, CSO involvement, I've had a lot of involvement with the Greenfield shelter, been there many, many times, worked with people who are staying there, worked with the staff there. And I think the important distinction is, whereas, I work with people who are, dealing with disability issues, doing my CSO work, doing outreach, when people have, psychiatric issues and people have, substance abuse issues. But the reason that the shelter is independent of those issues, they try to, provide support for people around those. That's not why they're there. They're there because they don't have housing. And so that would seem independent of the Dover Amendment because they simply don't have another place to live. Their disability issues may be, impacting their ability to find or sustain housing, but that's not inherently why they're there. There are a lot of people there who wouldn't, necessarily fall under diagnosis of having a primary disability or substance abuse disorder. It seems to me it's a fundamentally as a homeless shelter, and I was looking at the one from the last one in Ellis Memo. Yeah, which is very straightforward, and it's for overnight accommodations for the homeless, or could say people who are homeless, person first language. So so it's very straightforward. This is folks who need somewhere to stay overnight, and that's accommodating them. So that's basically what it is. It's independent of disability or substance use. In some ways, it's cleaning it up from any issues of disability or treatment or stuff like that.
So do you think that those services, like, is that a second definition, or is that just something that people could overlay on and temporary? Like, if we were to go with this, of the three, like we're talking about this Worcester one, is it material to the definition we're developing that we address services or no services, or is that just inconsequential and it's really just about whether or not they're sleeping there?
Well, my understanding is the shelter staff are mostly providing case management type of services to help people find housing, and or other basic needs.
In this hypothetical shelter we're talking about, or is the specific one here in Greenfield?
Well, I'm talking about my experience with this particular one in Greenfield, but I think for the most part, if we're talking about a shelter for people who are homeless, they're trying to help people. Their primary function is to help people find other housing, move on from the shelter. Incidentally, they're going to help people go to a doctor or get dental care, or, find treatment for, mental health concerns or substance use concerns, but they're not providing those services. They're referring people to those services. And I think that would be basically the model for any shelter for people who are homeless. They're not a treatment program. They're a shelter for people who are homeless, and they have this, they try to support them, in the moment by, getting their needs met by referring them out, but also their primary function is to house them and help them move on to somewhere else to be housed.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense.
Do we think the definition in this draft is too broad for a shelter then?
Well,
This says temporary sleeping accommodations or refuge typically and shared accommodated living arrangements for individuals experiencing homelessness, domestic violence, natural disaster displacement, or other emergency need. Shelters may include accessory services such as meals, counseling, case management, or medical screening.
I think domestic violence is one that is needs temporary, if you are displaced for different reasons, then you don't have,
Right.
so that fits into the same category potentially.
Well, is it a place where people whose houses burned down can go or no? If someone has a fire in Greenfield and their house is gone, can they go to the shelter?
I don't know. I mean, the shelter would have its own policies for how they would find people eligible. I don't know that.
That's what I'm saying. So maybe this definition is too broad.
I don't think so.
You know?
I mean, I think, you know, it's basically housing for someone who doesn't have housing. And then the shelter itself would determine who would be eligible for.
Was that a question we should ask the shelter? Before we try to put a definition together?
I mean,
Can one of our residents whose house is burned down use your overnight facilities to sleep in? You're in our town,
But again,
providing a service.
it's not, how does this shelter do it? It's how does any theoretical, because if another, you know, shelter wanted to open up. I think looking at these,
So again, that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe,
Yeah.
what do we expect the shelter to do? We expect the shelter to serve our community, correct? So if a person in our community has a problem, it's not meant to shelter. It should be primarily for our community. That should be that's what we're here for, our community. So the first function the shelter should serve is residents of the town.
I don't know if we can dictate that.
But isn't that what it's supposed to do? Isn't that what this
I mean,
definition
some-
says?
I think it seems like you could have specialized shelters that focus on certain types of need or general purpose shelters, like,
Do they receive funding from us in Greenfield?
well, as it pertains to zoning, that's not relevant. It's what is the use of the building?
Again, are we dictating the use of the building or trying to?
I think we are, but there's certain things we can't. Like you can't dictate, you can't say this restaurant has to serve food that I like to eat. Just have to have, it's a place that serves food.
That's not the same thing, Jeff. We're talking about community services. And to me, a shelter is like a Y. A Y is a community service. It does certain things for the community. The library does certain things for the community. If a shelter is going to be in our town, shouldn't it do something for the community?
so you're suggesting we can make programmatic requirements, not just requirements about how they exist as far as how they affect.
I guess what I'm saying is if a shelter wants to open in our town, we should be able to say, we would like you to provide services for our community as well. Like I said, if someone's house burns down, they have no one in town, there's no family, no nothing in town, are we going to make them go to a hotel? And then force them to do that? Are we going to say, we have a shelter in town, you can use the shelter?
I think the thing, we can't, it's not our shelter. It's the private entity's shelter.
It's sort of a hotel.
But it's like if it's full, if we can't
Okay,
promote their,
okay.
I think that serving the community is implied by,
No, I don't see it.
I guess my personal sense is we can't control that. Not that I don't disagree with you or not. It's not about whether I think it's the right thing to do for Greenfield or whatever else. It's just my understanding of what zoning can do doesn't include that, but others can weigh in. We could decide.
I think that what zoning can do is consider the things we generally look at when we're thinking about something, where it can be placed, what impact it might have on the neighborhood, and those kind of things. How it's managed, would serve, I think, a more programmatic details. You know, we have, you know, issues of, you know, that have been, you know, some of these are political issues. So when we had the concern about, you know, helping people who were, you know, dealing with, you know, cold weather protection, you know, there was involvement between the mayor and the council and the human service organizations. So the shelter was involved in that, and they opened up for some additional daytime space for people, or got involved with the currently it's the certain nights the Salvation Army is open not for people to sleep, but just it's there for when the conditions are so cold, people can stay in there, so they're protected. It's a warming center, no beds or anything like that. So we're, as Jeff said, I think it's not our function to dictate the programmatic way it's operated or who it serves, but just how it's going to affect the community. So, and where it might be placed or something like that.
Yeah, that's a limitation of zoning. I think maybe there's. I don't know how the health department weighs in, but there might be some other levers there. To control, like who licenses that basically. Maybe they have the power to do that. We're not giving them a license. We're just.
I don't know. So we were set up an expectation for someone who wanted to come into town. So we said, if you want to put a shelter in our town, we would like you to do this. This would be part of your program. You want to move into our town, we'd like this to be part of your program. They don't want to be part of our program, then they don't move into our town. I'm not, it just seems reasonable to me.
Just not sure it's legal. I agree it's reasonable. But you can't control who lives in a unit, a housing unit.
No.
Through zoning. You can't control if it's rental or ownership. You can only control that it's a unit that's of a certain size. I think when you get into the people, that maybe some of the things you were talking about, George, providing certain types of services, we could control that. If it is providing clinical services or something like that, that's a category of things we can control, right?
Well, that would affect what category it would fit into. If it is providing treatment, I don't think the kind of case management or referral. I think I know this. The staff at this shelter provide, and I think any homeless, shelter for the homeless would be considered treatment. It's a service, but I don't think it would be considered treatment.
It's all a referral to other.
Yeah, or assistance making applications for longer term housing, for that kind of thing. But the main function is addressing lack of housing. That's the eligibility, is lack of housing from whatever source, displacement for various reasons. And it does seem like it would fill a gap in our zoning ordinance because.
Okay.
We're good.
So question. Victor, what you drafted is it seems like a whole additional section to this,
It is.
that would be added to the zoning ordinance.
I guess.
And what Ella's kind of implying in her memo is that we would add a definition of, similar to these other cities, Northampton, Holyoke, and Worcester, maybe like shelter or emergency shelter or something like that. It does look like, you can stretch and say shelter might fall under one of these definitions, but it might make the most sense to add a definition of shelter. That would be a more discrete addition to the zoning ordinance code. I don't know what your all thoughts are on being more, discreet about it versus adding a multi-page section.
I would assume that each of these definitions that is listed here has some sort of guidance around. So if we say, okay, this is a boarding house, okay, it's a boarding house. I would assume that in the zoning code, there's some specific things you have to do for a boarding house. Then what's the point? Then what's the point of having a definition?
That's a good question. The point, should I answer that?
Sure, of course.
The point of the definition is so that, and I didn't include this, and I don't have it with me, so that the use table can define in which districts are each of those uses allowed by right, by site plan, or by special permit. And you can't dictate that. So that's why, to be clear, 6 Arch Street was by site plan approvals, because the closest use that we have in our zoning code is mixed use. So if we had a definition of shelter and then added that to our use table, that a shelter, and you have this in your draft, right? So that you can establish that.
Right, yeah.
Okay, I think, Sarah, what Victor read is, in some way, the memo, it references the different places in the code that we would make the modification. So it wouldn't be some new section all by itself. This
The use
definition would
table.
go in the definitions that would go in the use table, would be in the parking table.
All right.
Yeah, it gets distributed across the coordinates.
I mean, on the first page of Victor's memo, the transitional shelter / transitional housing facility seems like a reasonable definition. That it's not an emergency shelter, I mean, but it, could use, typically would exceed a month, but generally less than 2 years. So, I mean, you don't have to, so.
Do we need 3? I like the first one, so. Fine.
No.
Of yours, yeah.
Shelter. Problem with that was that.
That personally. It's an emergency need. It's kind of redundant, really, to say natural disaster displacement. But that means we have natural disasters here. Floods and such.
I'll go
Well,
back to
the-
the whole discussion about the house burning down.
The only concern I would have is that would imply that if there is a natural disaster displacement, the shelter would be available to those people. And or if someone experienced domestic violence, my experience would be the shelter is virtually always full. And
If
someone
it's full,
would,
it's full. I mean, if it's full, knows that it has to throw out people to move into it. But if it's empty or it's got available spaces, it kind of asks them, can you take these people in? That's, well, we don't know if they would. So again, we'll go back to the discussion. Let's say it's half full and we have a major fire and 16 people are without home.
I've been working with this program for years.
Right.
It is never not full. Never.
I mean, I know,
I'm serious. I
But it's,
support people trying to get.
but it's probably not full of people that come from Greenville.
but that's like the mayor needs to make a phone call, not the planning board to make a phone call.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, I see the word "or" here. So if you wanted to open a shelter that specializes in natural disasters or houses burning down, like, that's accommodated in this definition.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that someone who does one has to do the other.
Okay.
I think it's a mistake to have all those categories. I think it's the very fact that people, for whatever reason, don't have housing. I don't think we want to mess with saying why they don't have housing. I think that's unnecessary. And it's in some ways, it's just unnecessary. It's just filler in a way. Because
George, would you end the sentence after homelessness?
Let's sorry.
yeah. Yes. Because a lot of times people who experience domestic violence wouldn't be referred to more specific. So
I'm fine with it in homelessness, but it covers everything.
I think
But
sorry.
so what?
If we're gonna say that, we should just say for individuals who need housing. Because I would argue that people experiencing domestic violence are not necessarily homeless, but they need to get out of their home. So maybe they're not homeless, but they need a place to go. Like that, feel like that goes into shelter facilities to me in the definition of shelter facility.
Well, that's why I suggested the third definition, providing temporary housing. It says for whatever reason.
Secure and permanent housing is too specific. They just need to get away while the situation is resolved. Sometimes they can go back, somebody goes to jail or something, they go back to their home.
Mhm.
Maybe just put down experiencing temporary home.
The function we're talking about is a place where people stay temporarily.
Right.
That's what it is. It doesn't matter why they're there.
Mhm.
It's up to the program to decide why they're there. It's not a hotel.
Right.
It's not an Airbnb.
Well, the third definition says temporary housing.
But it also says securing permanent housing. Going back to Jeff's question, maybe they don't need permanent housing, they have permanent housing, they're escaping a situation. And they just need to get somewhere out until they can get to where they want to go. Get themselves.
So the last one does say typically exceeding 30 days, so.
Yeah.
So that would be, yeah.
Okay, so what if we have a facility providing temporary housing combined with supportive services? Typically with stays exceeding 30 days, but generally less than 24 months.
Are you reading one or is that a modified one?
Yeah, I'm reading from transitional shelter, transitional housing facility, but I crossed out some words. I crossed out designed to assist residents in securing permanent housing.
They may have supportive services.
Okay,
I don't know, George, do you think supportive services is part and parcel of the rest of it? Is that always going to be a portion of it? I don't know.
I don't think that would be typical, but I don't know. Odd if it wasn't provided.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you're saying, that someone might have, a displacement where they're returning to what was their permanent housing. I appreciate that point. So it would be nice to, so you could say secure or return to permanent housing.
A facility or building that provides temporary sleeping accommodations or refuge, typically in a shared or congregate living arrangement for individuals finding themselves homeless for any reason.
Did you leave the last sentence?
Hmm?
Do you keep the last sentence?
About the services, accessory services and meals and counseling.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily what we're trying to do. What are we trying to do? We're trying to provide housing for people. You can say it may have.
Yeah.
Shelters may include.
Yeah.
You can leave that.
That's what I mean, because
Very-
we shouldn't
Yeah,
make it illegal
yeah.
to give them a meal. The thing that happens is that once you're serving meals, you are now no longer what the definition says, unless the
Right,
definition
right.
includes that.
Right.
And then we get into, so if we feel like that's
That's
appropriate.
I agree.
I feel like we have some consensus on our intent, like what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We have it, and we have some examples to go from it. I'm just curious if, well, two other questions. One, the Dover amendment was invoked with this last application. Do we need to make sure do we need to factor in the Dover amendment in our zoning definition? Or is that just up to the applicant to make the case for, and we don't have to worry about that? Like someone can say, well, so what we're gonna do is define what a shelter is and say where it can go and where it can't go, or where it can go by right versus special permit versus not allowed. If someone invokes the Dover amendment, they can override all of that and put it wherever they want, right?
Well, I thought the Dover amendment was related to folks who have disabilities. We're not defining this based on disability, it's based on eligibility, is based on needing housing.
Yeah.
Not on needing housing because you have a disability.
Right.
So I would think the Dover amendment wouldn't be relevant. Someone could argue it is, but I wouldn't think it
I guess
would be
it'll,
relevant.
well, it would be relevant if someone wants to put our shelter somewhere we say it can't go. So we're gonna say this can only go in, I'm assuming we're gonna say you can put this in some districts and not in other districts.
Well, why would that be relevant? Because it's not related to, it's not disability. Anyway.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe you can clarify what the Dover Amendment is. My understanding is that it's a particular to educational services and religious institutions, saying that you can't prohibit them, basically. Am I right about that?
My current understanding is it's both of those things. And
Oh.
so it applied for 6 Arch Street because of that issue,
Education.
education. And that we can't, as a municipality, prohibit, really affect the use. Like where we can't regulate based on that use. That we can't discriminate against education. It also, I think this is also the Dover Amendment. Whether or not it's the Dover Amendment, there are also protections against housing discrimination against people with disabilities, and that's been interpreted to apply to people with addictions. And why that relates to this definition, but although I think we're skirting around it, but certainly I'll do more research, is if we edited this down so much so that it said a facility or building that provides temporary sleeping accommodations, typically in a shared or congregate living arrangement, that's a family, that's a house, that's a dwelling unit. And so we couldn't say, oh, you need a special permit to do that in the RA district. But you are allowed by right to have a single dwelling unit. And maybe in my family, I have 12 people and some of them are related by blood and some aren't. So that's when you get related to this discrimination. And I guess how I explained it is confusing, but it's related to how some municipalities tried to zone out sober homes and said, oh, if you're unrelated folks living in a congregate shared housing, you're not allowed here. But you can define family in that way.
But if we add it in clearly, for
think
individuals
so.
experiencing homelessness, then that's not a family.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's like, well, we're all experiencing homelessness until we have a home, right? And like, so I don't know, but really I am trying to be tricky because that's what lawyers do, right? And like temporary, it's like, well, my son will be with me for 18 years. Is that temporary? So I think that that's probably why the 30 days and 24 months is included in some of the definitions. This is not something that I think we can totally figure out tonight.
Oh, I think you're right.
Do more research, but that's something to be aware of is if we make it too general, then it could just be congregate living, which in other words, family.
I don't think we're looking to get that. Like, I don't get the feeling. We're trying to get very, I mean, I think the first line, the first definition there, you kind of wordsmith is kind of wrong. Pretty good.
Be interested in that listserv and input in the Attorney General as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that way, or-
Yeah.
Okay, well, it feels like we got this going. But
Got it going.
we're gonna do some more. There's a lot of people that are volunteering to help us and give us more ideas. Did you find
No.
maybe there's a different LOIs that this?
I did.
So we want to look at anything else in here? We want to look at the use table?
It's worth thinking about, yeah.
I mean, the only thing I did, I took out the by right. I don't like. Site plan review, special stuff.
What are we talking about?
The use table, it's on the second page.
How did you
Okay.
get the use status? How did you decide the use status?
I did not decide, but I asked, what I did is I went out and did a search for shelter definitions in the state of Massachusetts and wordsmith something together.
Okay,
So these came from these are other documents that are in place somewhere in Massachusetts.
okay,
So these definitions, these dimensions, all this stuff is gleaned from other zoning codes from other places in Massachusetts. So I didn't create any of these.
so we would need to kind of look at the use status and how that compares with other residential.
Well, it's like the use
Uses,
table.
I guess.
The RG state,
or map really?
our max.
What district should allow this use
Right.
and on what conditions?
Yeah, we'd have to change it now for the PG or CT, whatever numbers we do, but yes.
Right. And what I'm saying is like, is lodging or boarding house similar use status? I don't have to, but that would just be something I didn't check before this meeting.
If it's. It should be maybe it should be in the same districts that allow hotels and lodging, because it's similar to that.
Similar to
Or
that.
we think it should only be,
That's what I would.
that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, similar to, I don't know, lodging or boarding house, shared housing, nursing or home. Something like that,
Mhm.
dormitory.
So lodging and boarding house are allowed by special permit in the RA. Yeah, so these zoning districts don't have all of our zoning
Right,
districts.
no.
Okay, so, yeah.
Right.
So, that's-
So this is a different question. So has our definition of boarding house been somehow superseded or moved aside? Because when I read this, I didn't realize it was actually in our code. And I'm thinking about a situation I had on the ZBA. And the board voted that it was a family, not a boarding house. If you can't define a family, this defines a family, does it not? Second degree of kindred to the proprietor.
That's not the definition
It says
of.
here, therefore occupants not being within the second degree of kindred of the proprietor.
That could be interpreted as a family, but
Know what I mean? Well, but
it's not a definition of a family.
No. The people bringing the petition before the zoning board were claiming they were a family, even though none of them were related at all.
Single housekeeping, right?
Well, again, what does that mean? A single housekeeper? It's basically a multi-bedroom house with strangers living in it. And
So that's exactly what I was saying, that is protected under chapter 40A, section 3. That someone could claim that as a family, and so you can't discriminate.
But that's not what this is.
Right, so this is a very carefully worded definition, and because it's not a single housekeeping unit, it's not equivalent to a family.
What is a single housekeeping unit?
It's not defined in our zoning code, but I think like a colloquial understanding of, it's one household. There's shared finances and a shared kitchen.
Roommates.
So if they don't use the kitchen, then it's no longer a single housekeeping unit.
If they use separate kitchens, that I think would change it, yeah.
I mean, it's-
A dwelling,
All right,
sorry.
sorry.
Dwelling unit is defined here, as you can see. So a single unit providing independent living facilities for one or more persons.
You were asking about lodging and boarding house?
I know.
So, it's, only allowed special permit. In the, urban residential, semi-residential, CC and, general commercial,
That was the topic. They were,
It's only-
they were,
special permit.
So lodging and boarding house is very restricted.
Yep.
it is. They argued that they were a family, but we knew it was supposed to say. Because they're all,
Is this in a previous town that
no,
you
here, one was on the ZBA,
were on the ZBA?
yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
I was like, wait a minute. It's a boarding house.
So you're suggesting kind of an equivalency, lodging and boarding house with a
Oh, I don't know, now knowing that there's special permit, but in my mind, it seemed like they were kind of similar.
logical equivalent.
Yeah,
This definition excludes congregate housing. I would guess that a lodging boarding house is a commercial enterprise, like you pay to stay there. in a shelter, you do not necessarily pay to stay there.
Mhm,
But this is a business, so it's regulated, it's similar to a hotel. Like, that's what they talk about proprietor.
mhm, mhm.
It is categorized as a residential use.
Lodging boarding house.
Yeah, so would our shelter be residential use?
No. No. People will reside there.
I think it was interpreted as a residential use in our mixed use residential was how the CSO thing was. Not saying that it should have been, but that's.
I mean, it's not like a hospital where people stay there. It's a place where people live and engage with the community from.
The hotel is not that.
What is, what is hotel? That's, that's a residential.
It is under residential use.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's up?
Bed and breakfast, or tourist home.
Hotel, motel is nothing.
But it's not.
Really? But bed and breakfast is residential, okay.
That's an interesting distinction.
But hotel is not under, hotel is, where is,
It's under commercial use,
ah,
right under a gas station.
okay, dormitory. So dormitory is, well, interesting.
Victor, does your memo answer this question? Like what, is it a residential use or a commercial use or a medical use?
I don't believe so.
Excuse me.
I think, Sarah, that figuring that out would help us decide where it should go, maybe.
Figure out what?
Like, is this shelter a residential use? Or is it more of like a hotel type use to go in a place that has hotel type things?
That, I
Or
think it would.
institutional.
It's a business. Not.
So is a bed and breakfast, and that's in, so bed and breakfast is business in residential, hotels business in commercial.
Well, I see dormitory is also under residential.
Yep.
And that has only by special permit, but in different zones than lodging boarding house. Interesting.
Is there a size consideration? Like shelters of a certain size need to be in this type of district and smaller ones can be that type of district? That need anywhere? Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be the case in any other city.
One of our definitions is based on size, shared housing.
Yeah.
It's also based on age. I don't know what that's based on.
Well, Sarah, where do you think it should fit? Did you have a,
I don't know.
Suggestion?
I think it requires more discussion. Know where it should go.
did it go in residential districts?
Seems like it.
What do you think, Victor?
No, so I think it should be. I think it should be. in Business areas. Hotel areas and things like that.
Sorry.
You don't put hotels in residential districts, you don't put. It's a business, it's a business.
One thing I'll offer is that a lot of utilizers of shelters are in need of utilizing other services
Yeah, closer down.
and have transportation challenges. Would be getting around on foot or by bike. So that's why the shelter, the current shelter being downtown. It's just,
Agree,
so just throw that out.
So it's
give them customer services.
So CC would be the default, that's commercial. All the other districts spread out into other parts of town. Big map right there too.
Well, but you have semi-residential, I mean, they're not all totally spread out.
It's the hospital as well. Health service. It would be a reasonable place to put it. If you're trying to co-locate it with services that these people would need. In general commercial is where the hotels are.
I would think those are the areas it belongs.
What was that?
General commercial, the central business district, the hospital district. You know, things of services that the people there might or could potentially need.
So CC, GC, and H. Service.
Well, general commercial is. Yes. Not particularly. That's very bicycle.
At the moment, but it is next to.
Well, that plan comes up.
But it is where hotels are, as one precedent, and it also is where there's lots of
Well,
grocery stores and things like
yeah.
that.
The majority of hotel guests are getting around on foot or by bike. So,
No, but we were just trying to decide what is this most like, and therefore should it go in similar? Like one of the ideas was if this is like a hotel, it should go where other hotels are. Now, whether or not that stands up is another thing.
And I'm saying one crucial component distinguishing it from hotels is the mode of transport.
Yeah.
Of the people residing there.
Throughout the hotel, also on the bus lines. Took the rotary and you got the RTA right there, ShopRite, that's a big one. So there are services nearby.
The hotels are
having
temporary shelters at the moment too.
Having taken the buses, I'll tell you, there's challenges to the.
Sure.
It's improved,
I'm
but.
not- it could be special permit or something too. And
Well, I think
where you have to like prove that you
Sure.
can
Yep.
make it work in that location.
Yeah.
I'm not sure people will be upset about narrowing the places this could be.
That's true. And I don't think, well, what about semi-residential? Since that's, you mentioned the hospital.
Yeah.
What about semi-residential? That's contiguous, between central commercial and.
Yeah.
Hospital.
So if we do when we do a zoning change like this, we'll have a public hearing. And also ask, this might be something we aren't quite sure.
Of course.
What people think.
Yeah.
Like, so we can
I'm
have,
just saying, our initial take.
yeah. But
Proposed.
I guess my question is, do we have to have this determined to have the public hearing to get reaction to that? And if we then change it based on what they say, it's a substantive change and require this to go, like how much can we define versus leave open to public comment and not have to restart the process? Sometimes, if you make a change to what you had the public hearing on, that's too substantial, you have to go back and.
Right. Well, I figured this is a work in progress because
Yeah.
we're still going to work on the definition. So I think this is the first iteration of our zoning recommendation. So
Yeah.
I was just asking about
Okay.
semi-residential because it's very close services wise. It's kind of between the hospital zone and the central
Yeah.
commercial. So
But it makes total sense.
I don't know if there's some reason we wouldn't consider that. It's kind of a little distinct.
More neighbors that have an opinion about it.
It's a very small
Yeah.
district.
Yeah.
It's in the eclectic district already too, has lots of,
That's where the Weldon is, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if there would be any, options for,
So to you, George, semi-residential makes more sense than general commercial.
what again?
General commercial is the one that extends out to Big Y. That one feels not really,
Well, I think it would be challenges to have it. For people who are dealing with homelessness, to be able to readily, safely access services they would need.
Which are primarily in the H district and the CC district.
We're not in the general commercial district.
Yeah.
But we're just opening it up to, we're not telling them you have to build it. So we're just opening it, giving them more options than fewer options. I say you can put one, you can't put one.
Yeah.
Including the ones that are critical down. But someone might find that it's a better fit for their particular program. So we're just opening it up to.
That's true.
Someone could propose, you know, we would feel we have a good opportunity to put it here. We'll provide shuttle service to all,
Right.
you know, services or something like that. So, yeah, we shouldn't just presume it based on the current situation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's.
Yeah. All right, so potentially up to 4 districts that we would suggest this would go in. And then what is our initial opinion on special permit versus by right versus
I think special. permit.
I think a special permit.
no matter where you put it?
Yeah. And semi-residential, I raised the question, not the recommendation. I think hospital, central commercial, general commercial. See,
Hospital would be like the health district, is
Yeah,
that what
yeah.
it's called?
That's right.
Health service
Oh, is it?
district.
is that what, is it called hospital?
I think it's called health service
Oh,
district.
okay, sorry. I see H. I think
The hospital.
H for hospital.
For hospital.
That's where the hospital is. That makes sense. Is that where the middle school is and the Catholic church?
CVS.
Is there a line somewhere in that block?
Is not hospital.
Along Federal Street is LC,
Sorry, I can just check.
commercial.
Yeah, okay.
Middle school kind of straddles districts.
That's in the H, is the orange area.
Yeah, so the line on the district is like, it's west of North Street, but it is before Federal Street.
The middle school is bisected.
Yeah,
Two zoning districts.
okay.
You can make half of it a shelter.
Yeah. Which is what we're.
Well, the mayor was saying it's underutilized. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
So we don't think we need both, since we're gonna get rid of like purpose and intent. We don't need a purpose and intent, right?
I think that's right.
We're gonna get rid of emergency shelter. That's definitely under definition, the emergency shelter is gone. Transitional is gone. We're modifying shelter.
And can we define where we landed with shelter? So I have what it is, but delete domestic violence, natural disaster, displacement, or other emergencies.
I suggested a change in the first sentence of a facility or building that provides a temporary sleeping accommodation or refuge, typically in a shared or congregate living arrangement for individuals finding themselves homeless for any reason. That was how I had modified that. Because we wanted, it was basically for homelessness, but we weren't gonna say why they were homeless, it's because it's none of our business. They're homeless.
I could, we could say experiencing, based on what you guys were pointing out, it could be, a short-term thing. Experiencing short-term or long-term homelessness.
Yeah, what about like
Would that be-
homelessness or housing instability? Is that a,
What
What is the term
housing
for
instability?
housing, is there a term for that? People who maybe technically have housing, but it's not safe or it's not secure.
Housing insecurity
yeah.
is sometimes used, but
Housing insecurity, yeah. So homelessness or housing insecurity.
So what's the wording you're gonna?
I think, well, Ella's gonna have, I think she'll have to. She took what you wrote and is modifying it based on this conversation.
Right.
The other question I would have is if it's for individuals and families. Like parents with kids, for example.
there are, there is a family shelter in town. I don't know, if it still isn't, Federal Street, small, very small. But,
Does the word individual exclude family?
no, that's a good point.
Are the kids also individuals and they're also experiencing it, so it doesn't really matter?
That's a good point. Because there has been for years a family shelter in town.
And you would think that that would fall under this
Yeah.
definition.
The only
I don't know. Good question.
Said or family,
Yeah, I think,
putting or family.
okay. Or family.
Yeah.
Or family.
And I think it would be good to say stability and say something like short or longer term somewhere in there. So it's acknowledging someone might be temporarily displaced by, it's implying
Yeah.
by a domestic violence situation or.
Does the or housing insecurity meet that, or would you like to continue? So I'll read out loud what I have. A facility or building that provides temporary sleeping accommodations or refuge, typically in a shared or congregate living arrangement for individuals or families experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity.
I would think, yeah, housing insecurity is a fuzzy term. I think it'd be helpful to say, short term or, short or longer term homelessness or housing insecurity. I think that it makes it clear we're talking, it could be someone who's there a few days and someone could be there, months.
Okay.
I think that's helpful to give a picture.
And then that second sentence, shelters may include accessory services, blah, 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 blah. There, is that being kept or we doing that? Kept
I think it's
that?
important. We can,
Yeah.
accessory use.
Uh-huh, right, okay. Great.
We're not gonna worry about the by standards. Sorry with that. Take that out.
Parking, maybe. I mean, let's look at what is the zoning, like what are our options? We can look at the zoning code.
Just to be sure, so we're recommending special permit in central commercial, general commercial, hospitals and semi-residential.
Residential.
What's the reason for the hospital? Allowing,
Services, potential need for services.
okay,
I see Worcester recommends 0.1 parking spaces per bed.
Then they got transportation problems, so that kind of was really big to ask.
No, I mean, the vast majority of people don't have
Oh, yeah.
vehicles. The same.
Where's the parking? What is the parking table?
Of people who would be residing.
And 15% of all households. Do not have a car.
oh, wow, how do you know that?
From the bike plan's previous presentation.
How did,
Like
how did they know?
Cool. Worcester 1%. Often they'll, like in our own parking, or off-street parking spaces table, they distinguish between spaces for employees and spaces for customers or residents or users.
Right.
Worcester doesn't do that.
Well, it makes sense because, is it one space for largest,
Shift.
largest shift?
Yeah, that's our definition for hospital. 1.5 spaces per bed, plus 1 space per each employee on the larger shift. That's something a lot.
1.5 spaces per bed. What?
Or 11 halves of space. I can't quite read it. They don't have that. That's a lot. We don't need that.
The
To your point,
hospital
Peter.
has a lot of parking.
Yeah, it's pretty full. Because not
I
everyone.
would,
is going there.
I would say 1 spot per employee plus
Well, per
quarter,
largest shift,
yeah.
that's this kind of the
And
standard.
you just could add in something, you want to say, 0.25 spaces per number of beds, just in case someone has a visitor.
There are, some
So you say minor space for someone who might, or maybe someone calls in somebody, a specialist comes to visit them, or you get a counselor to come in or something, so you need spaces for them.
Well, one question is how many beds do these, just to calculate how many spaces we'd be talking about, how many beds does a typical shelter have?
Wall Street, 60, right?
Is that a normal size?
That's small, they said.
It varies a lot. I don't know. This one is something like that. I don't know what they're gonna be with the expansion.
think you should-
I wasn't part of the meeting.
That's good.
I think the shift is probably good. And I do think you should provide something in case somebody has
Oh, yeah,
a need for someone to stop in. So it doesn't need to be full space. per
some
se.
residents do have cars and certainly there's outside supporters that drive over there. And safe mixed use. Sometimes we bike over there.
Okay, so it's one space per employee, the largest shift plus some allocation for, based on bed count.
Yeah, we don't-
Not a large number.
Yeah, put that in the ordinance, not a large number.
Not a large
Reasonable.
Reasonable amount of,
A reasonable amount.
and we're not
We
gonna.
don't want to be prescriptive. Reasonable amount.
We're not gonna get involved in all in their operations. Yeah. Site design, neighborhood compatibility.
Yeah, I would be interested in, there's others besides what would be the,
Parking requirement.
yeah, the parking requirement. Yeah, the other ones, give that,
I don't know why I don't have that, yeah.
the 0.1 is pretty, that's about minimal we get.
I would think 2.5.
And the other two didn't get that.
Good call, thanks. So
And the, oh, sorry.
Claude says it's one space per 10 beds is
What's this?
the AI.
AI.
I mean, that's the same as, that's what was. So
Oh.
not to say that it's the right thing or anything, but just, it's a second source that suggests that that's a normal ratio.
Okay.
Another one is for 6 occupants, allowed at max capacity. I think we should just,
What's the difference?
Went through some. The abacus.
what comes after 3 and 5, what, 0.14. Infinite irrational number. All right. I think we've gotten as far as we're gonna get on that.
Yeah.
Okay,
So thank you, everyone. I think
Good work.
We got close, and now we're getting a bunch of good feedback, so maybe we can cross-reference that. I'll also watch the feed and see what people suggest. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had it pulled up because I was gonna. All right, and we have one more thing I think we can, it's not gonna be a long. Two more things. So, are we skipping this last one, Ella?
No,
We're not skipping.
this is different.
Oh, okay.
you talking about the mixed use?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Discussion of zoning amendment to section 20710 mixed residential business uses to restrict residential use of those allowed by right in the district in which the building is located. Oh, right. Okay.
So this is just a minor proposed word change. Is that correct? To the
Correct.
existing.
Just the red.
It's the red, yep.
Adds in, business uses shall be limited to only those allowed by right. And now residents with. shall be-
So currently, it specifies that the business has to be allowed by right if it's gonna be mixed with a residential to be allowed with just a site plan. So this section of the code 710 mixed residential business uses is what Six Arch again this was relevant to Six Arch and why they got site plan review instead of special permit. And so this clause said that business uses shall be limited to only those allowed by right in the district in which the building is located. So what I suggest adding is the residential uses should also be allowed by right. If they're allowed by right, then they're allowed by right mixed. But if they require a special permit alone, then when they're mixed, they should also require.
Special permit. That makes sense.
Okay, so this is the main section says it will be allowed without a special permit. If all the following conditions are met, gotcha.
How did this come up on the agenda? I'm just curious. So specific.
I think we, in the CSO conversation with Arch Street project, it revealed some weaknesses or some ambiguities in the code that we wanted to sharpen up.
Oh, okay.
Monumental changes, just next time we won't have to interpret so much.
Right.
Okay. So without this change, the residential district, residential use would not be allowed by right, but it still wouldn't have flagged it as needing a special permit.
Right, it's ambiguous
Ambiguous.
and has been interpreted that if the residential use, well, the residential use is undefined,
Yeah.
then it would only need a site plan. But also it's ambiguous that if the residential use requires a special permit, would it in the mix? And I think it could be interpreted to mean it doesn't, because very specifically the first part of this section is the use of an existing or new structure for mixed business and residential uses is permitted without a special permit.
Right. So this eliminates the need for an interpretation.
Right.
Yeah,
It's just straightforward.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so
What it does do is it brings back the idea that we do need to care what category of use we put
yeah,
permits in, right? Shelters in, because there's business, there's residential, there's also institutional, which isn't even one of these two. Seems like it wants to be in residential based on this.
I'm sorry.
So in the use table, there's categories of use. So we were talking about how bed and breakfast is in residential, but hotel is in commercial.
Right.
Or business. So
But this change has nothing to do with our shelter discussion, right?
well, if shelters are in institutional use and it's not a residential use,
Right.
then it's not addressed by this.
But we aren't doing this change related to the discussion we just finished about shelters, right?
I think we're doing this because I think we are.
yeah, so
Oh,
this, it does, why I propose this is because it really due to the experience with Six Arch Street, that Six Arch wasn't defined, this was the closest definition.
Okay.
So if next time a shelter is proposed and we clearly define it, we clearly can interpret it as a shelter and it requires a special permit.
Mhm.
And let's say there are offices in that same building, in that same project. And so actually it's most closely defined as mixed use.
Mhm.
If that residential use is a shelter and that shelter requires a special permit, then even if it's mixed use, it will require a special permit.
Whole project.
okay. As Jeff's pointing out, that's if we categorize shelter as a residential use.
Yeah, and that's what Mr. Chairman was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. So this would, if we agree with this slight change, that would require that we vote to move this forward or
Council.
yeah, for the process.
Joint, yeah.
That's being suggested we do this tonight, about the process or,
This is a discussion item at the moment.
oh, okay, sorry. Good
I
point.
mean, I don't know how, we could consider trying to bundle some of these zoning things
That's
together.
what I was gonna suggest. Yeah, this is so minor,
So
but
I mean, we can get, so I think we're comfortable with this, I assume.
I am,
sounds good.
definitely. Get rid of ambiguity.
I don't know.
Oh, you're not sure?
Well, I guess I'm okay. I'm happy to be agreeable and go along. I guess I'm a little bit confused about restricting shelters because my understanding was that due to the educational use, there were there were a few ways that we could restrict them, but I don't know.
If they make that case.
But this change wouldn't only apply to shelters. It
Correct.
just came up in the context of shelters. This would apply to any situation where there's a
Residential.
mixed use and it's not, so it's saying that not just the business had to be allowed by right, but the residential use. So that's why I was trying to parse these
Yeah,
out.
I mean, if that's the case, then maybe we should advance this as a separate item. It's just so much extra work whenever we make a zoning change,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the extra
Yeah.
meetings and having a public hearing and everything, a joint public hearing with the EDC and yeah, I'm just wondering if we do group them together, it is going to be in the discussion about shelters.
What I meant by grouping was not to make them one item, but to put them on the same track, right? Is that what
Same agenda.
you feel that if they're on the same, even if they're on the same agenda, two separate things to vote on, that?
It's just going to be one discussion about the multiple items and it will be around shelters,
Yeah, or sequence of discussions that lead into each other. Yeah.
which is okay.
But I think it would be clear I think it would be good to indicate this could apply to many other situations. I look at this as unrelated to specifically the shelter.
There's a lot of conversations about residential with retail on the ground floor, for example.
Well, yeah,
definitely.
many scenarios this could involve, so. And I think it's a great clarity, so we're not having to interpret.
And I think we can condition public that we're gonna find things like this and fix them.
Right.
Not a big
Right.
deal. We don't need to make a big thing about it every
Yeah.
time. Sometimes it's just simple clarification. Is that okay? You think? I mean, I think Jordan's right. We don't talk about this. Maybe we do this one first. Because it's very innocuous by comparison. But I agree with you. We shouldn't allow them to charge each other and be a big contentious debate. Okay, so that one,
We're okay with
we're at least agreeable on that one. And we'll try to get multiples of these so on the same slate, so we don't have to have too many public hearings. Okay, let's go back to Leonard real quick. Approval not required, plan endorsement for lots of 169 Old Albany Road, district map R39, map 1 and 2, submitted by Old Albany Road LLC, dated March 5th, 2026.
Have we seen this before? This looks familiar, doesn't it?
Yes, you have.
Okay.
Did we screw it up?
Did we?
Surprisingly. So they came in for a new, different parcel line. So they're creating 3 parcels.
Huh?
So the dashed parcel line is what was approved.
Parcel 2?
Parcel 2, yep, so they're making a smaller lot in the front and then a larger lot in the back, as well as the 8-acre lot.
So you're saying we did screw this up or you joking?
So, no, when I looked at it and I was forgetting, one of the lots didn't have 200 feet.
check that.
I was very surprised, but this will correct that.
Okay.
It's true.
And that's not the purpose of this, though. They were seeking an A&R to adjust how much acreage is in this smaller front parcel and how much is in the rear.
Okay. So, so we approved it without the requisite 200 feet.
Seems that way.
And does that stand? Even though it didn't meet the standard?
I think it would, but I think it would make them harder. It would make it harder if they were seeking building permits with those lots. But with this approval, that will all be overrided.
Okay. So where was the lacking 200 feet? I'm trying to.
I know, to be honest, I'm sorry, I don't have that answer.
None of the frontage is even in Greenfield.
Right, the 200-foot frontage is it's specific to Greenfield, but it's also a state requirement,
Okay.
It's also what again?
a state requirement.
This should say City of Greenfield.
That's right.
Yes, it should.
So this is currently taking the parcel 2 away from parcel 1, separating those two.
Parcel 1 and parcel 2 exist currently. It's
Line parcel 2. Right.
They exist currently as one parcel. So you're saying?
No, parcel 1 and parcel 2 are two separate parcels.
Okay.
So it's kind of making parcel 2 smaller and creating the 8-acre
Where's the?
Right, the 8 acre.
on the left.
Well, that's creating that.
Page left.
Okay.
Yes, so it's creating 3 parcels. All the 200 feet frontage.
Parcel 2 has.
Where's parcel
Frontage?
2 have? 200 feet frontage.
So the dashed line is the old property line. The solid black line is the new proposed.
Yes.
My assumption is that parcel 1 and 2 combine and you've got this new parcel on the side, all right?
No.
Is that correct?
One instant.
One is-
So this is a parcel,
Yeah.
All right,
this is a parcel,
all right.
Oh, okay.
this is a parcel.
Oh, so 1 and 2 are
One,
combined.
2, 1, well, yeah, 1 and 2 are combined.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
So this is frontage, and then this is frontage.
It had the funny flag lots on it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay. So, as a member of the planning board of the town of Greenfield, I, no, town of Greenfield, it's right here in black and white. I would move to, endorse this, A&R.
On the planning board in the city of Greenfield, I don't think this is relevant to me. There you go. Second.
I'll second the motion to endorse.
All in favor?
Aye.
I will also, make a motion for the chair to, sign on behalf of the full board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think I can do that tonight.
Thank you very much.
That's for the last item of our next meeting. Currently, according to this, if we're going on the third
We
Wednesday,
can't do this, right?
Oh.
Town council.
we can,
Okay.
but we can choose also.
So that would be the 18th, right?
Yeah, not the 19th. Right,
What's again?
right. The agenda says the 19th, which is an error.
Oh. So the 18th would be the third Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's fine. I was all excited. I put it on my calendar for the 19th.
That's up here.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So is the primary reason we're trying to avoid or get away from the third Wednesday is the city conflict with the city council meeting?
Yeah, if people would want to
Attend both.
attend both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Or if we wanted to attend.
Yep.
Council.
and so we're, I know we not gotten to resolving it at the last meeting and we were talking about maybe working on it this time. So we have 3 members not here. Are we going to punt it again are we going to meet on the 18th and try again to find a different schedule, or how are we going to do this?
I'm personally fine meeting on the 18th. I'm available that day. I had my I don't know, how concerned are we that there's that conflict at a principle? This is our working, we've typically considered the first meeting of the month, this public business meeting, not to say the other ones are public, but it's more of a working meeting. It's less likely to have, we're not going to put a public hearing. We wouldn't put a public hearing in
Right,
conflict with city council, for example.
right. Well, just working maybe.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that is that's a good distinction. But, you know, it's all for the public. And, you know, planning board's work is important. I think it does help that, you know, because when we're having, not having a public hearing, there's limits on how much public input there can be. And fortunately, with recorded things, the public has the option to, you know, watch and listen to the meeting afterwards. So that does provide some solace that there's public engagement available.
There are
So-
numerous nights per month where there are multiple meetings at the same time. Board of Health is also on the 18th at 6:30.
Yeah.
It's not like we need to avoid all conflicts, but no one else does.
Yeah.
There's 2 meetings on the second Tuesday. GSET, Board of Commissioners and
I think the fact we don't do anything that we don't do the public hearings, we're not doing things that they, you know, would feel left out because they weren't there. Like I said, in the truth, you always watch the recordings and comment.
we get
For
emails. Yeah. I mean,
And we can't get commented in advance.
I think it works for the board. That's the important part. So we're trying to get work done.
I mean, we're trying to do the public's work,
Yeah.
by meeting a second time a month.
Yeah.
So, and we have to juggle our schedules to be about availability, so.
we could also make a commitment. So the Appointments and Ordinances Committee meets at the same time that we do this day. We could ask them to move their meeting. We could make a commitment not to take action on what we do.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So we come up with our draft and we put that on the agenda to have an action item on the more public meeting. That's another way to give people a chance to come and talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, the meeting where the public would have more opportunity to attend if they're all public. I'm just saying, they're all public meetings.
Well, but in terms of our agenda, we put the public, yes, you're right. They're like public action items explicitly. I think we're doing what we can. And it's been really hard to, I mean, 2 meetings a month with a busy group of people is challenging to schedule and not have them just be like consecutive days or consecutive weeks. That was the other thing we're trying to avoid. Like I
Is
said,
this okay with you, Ellen, to stick with this?
Yeah, thank you. This room is not available.
Oh, right.
because of the Board of Health.
Yeah,
I thought they met at, on, Sanderson.
no, that doesn't have hybrid capability.
Fire department.
Your living room, I heard, is a nice.
I told you, my house is open. The cameras and I got Wi-Fi and use it. I'm serious.
So do we need to check on can you see the fire station on your calendar?
I can, and I think I reserved it.
Okay. Would you like to put that in?
It is available.
On the recurring meeting. That way it's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is available.
And I'll tell you, Peter should have no excuse. to just
Yeah.
roll.
Great.
That'd be his night off.
We'll just bunk and wake him up, whatever he's doing. Busy guy. Okay, so that's it.
Enough.
Motion to adjourn.
So,
Go adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good.
By the way, speaking of the bike plan, does anyone know the derivation of the word sharrow? Sharrow, which they spoke about? It's a portmanteau of shared and arrow. So it has an image of a bicycle and some arrows.
Oh, really?
So.
Okay.
Ella, I noticed on your letterhead, it has City Hall, 14 Court Square. Is that where the planning department is located now, or are you still on Sanderson?
I'm just, excuse me, so it's Sanderson, it's where I received mail though.
Okay, it was probably like that before, and I was just curious if it changed, but.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same.
Okay, thanks.
It's fine.
I didn't really, to ask you before him, but I should. That's maybe it's like, I don't know. I mean, this guy's but I should really be thinking something about other minutes that I've had that.
Right, yeah.
I put in 5 seconds as much as I